All right. Um, cool. All right. Well, I'm assuming we're live now. David, what's up, David? How you doing,
Not
man?
too much. Thank you so much for having me. I'm trying
Yeah.
to resize this so it's visible.
Yeah. We'll
Here we go. Okay.
yeah. Um, well, welcome everybody. I'm super excited for this stream. We're continuing the party of the Proko launch, and today we have David Finch, uh, probably one of the top comic artists who has ever lived. Um, yeah, yeah. Why are you making that face? You know that's true.
I could
you
think
know
of
that's.
I could think of a pretty long list. You
There's a
know.
lot of good ones, but no, you're definitely at the top. Like
Thank you.
legend, and I mean, worked on probably every major superhero anybody can think of, right? Like, yeah, I mean that says it all. So, and super exciting news! David is launching a new course on Proko.com about creating a comic page, and that the pre-sale for that is already live. We just published it this morning. So if you go to Proko.com/comic page, I think the link on that they're seeing is probably cut off.
It is.
So it is
Yeah.
cut off. Can you show them the? There you go. You can like
See
move
if
it
I
up
can
a
get
little
it
bit.
in there.
There you go. There you
Hopefully it's a
go.
little better.
Proko.com
Oh, and
slash.
it's still behind my name.
Yeah, it's all right. They get it.
There we
There
go.
it is.
Okay.
Proko.com/comic page, or just go to Proko.com and go to courses, and it's the first one on there. So Dave, can you tell them a little bit about the course before we continue?
Yeah. It's all about how to draw a comic page, and it covers a lot of ground. And so I started just as a broad overview. All of the different skills and techniques that go into making a page. So, composition and placement of blacks, and how to just arrange simple panels on a page, how to read a script, break down exactly what you need from a script and what you could ignore, because it's a lot. It's amazing how much writers will put into a script that you can kind of safely ignore, and still, you just really want to break it down to the beats that are
Yeah.
important. And so it's a bunch of sections all the way through a lot of that stuff. I'm forgetting some. And then a whole section on mistakes to avoid. And then from there, I do 3 different page examples.
Oh, nice.
So it's taking all that stuff together and then putting into practice. And I actually, in the scripts, made sure to put in errors in the story. It's amazing how easy it is for writers, especially writers that aren't familiar with drawing, to add in things that are impossible to draw. So I try to put that in there and show how to kind of solve those problems.
Oh, interesting.
So, and then
what kind of errors? What did you put in there?
a really common one is to have somebody has a gun and they want to shoot someone, and so it'll say in the script, in one panel, they reach down into their holster, pull the gun out, shoot, and put it back into the holster. And you can do that by drawing, I'm sure you've seen the panels where you have Spider-Man jumping across a bunch of different little ghost images. So maybe, but really it's basically impossible to show 2 different actions at one time, because you're seeing just a still snapshot. So you need to really, as the artist, be able to isolate when a writer does that, and then, fix that kind of a problem.
Got it. Cool. Well, anyway, I'm really excited for this course, and also for today's stream. I heard you're going to be drawing me and Marshall.
That's right. Yeah.
Yes.
And Marshall's not here, so I
Marshall's not here. He's on the road right now somewhere. I forgot.
Well, I was thinking
doing
maybe
something,
draw Marshall as a villain then, because he's not here to do that himself. That'd be fun.
Some people in the comments said to draw Skelly as a villain. But I don't know. That's 3 characters. I don't know if you have time for that.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it, but time starts to become a factor. We'll see.
Yeah, it's your drawing, man. You do whatever you want.
So what I'm going to do, I don't care. I'm going to quickly switch it.
But yeah, Marshall as a villain also makes more sense to me.
All right. Take me a second here. I'm no expert with this stuff.
You could go to your screen. They don't need to see me anymore. I'm just gonna be reading you questions.
Okay. No, I think we can get us all in here.
Oh, really?
Just like that.
Ah, there you go.
It should work. All right.
Oh, what's this draftsman back? What is this? Is that the reference you're gonna be using? I know what that is. It's one of our thumbnails for draftsman.
I wish there was a way that I could show it with the windows on top of it, and I don't know how to just isolate it. But I love that thumbnail. I thought it was hilarious. So I'm actually using that for my reference.
Okay, man, I'd rather just see your drawing bigger than my face. I don't think my face matters here.
All right,
You
if
think
you'd
you
like,
could just go? Yeah,
I can. I
my
can.
voice is good enough. There
All
you
right.
go. That's so much better.
Okay.
Yeah, I want to see you draw. So
Size my face down here just a little bit so it doesn't cover too much.
there you go.
That's pretty small, but now we can see the picture. All right.
Awesome. Great. Um, so I guess you're gonna just start drawing here, and I'll ask you questions. Are you ready at any point for questions?
Oh yeah, I'm ready the whole time. Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, guys, if you want to ask questions during the stream, uh, we're taking questions from the Proko page stream. So that's proko.com/508. Oh my God, you draw so fast. I seriously thought I was watching a time lapse just now. Your hand is moving so fast.
It's the sketch.
That's amazing.
Yeah, I wish it was all this fast.
Oh man, if Sean's my production manager, if he sent me footage of this, I'd be like, "Can you slow that down a little bit? That doesn't seem real." Wow. Okay. Okay, I'm gonna ask you a question instead of fanning out here. So the first question is from Jared DePietro. Hello, David Finch. Thank you for the stream. It's fitting that you're drawing Stan and Marshall. One thing they often talk about is art mentors. When Jason Fabok spoke at my high school, he told us about how he got connected with you and then you retaught him how to draw for comic books. I was wondering if you could share that story from your perspective, especially what it was about, his art or personal character that ultimately led you to teach him.
Well, he emailed, and it was a great email. And he was educated. He actually went to St. Clair College, which is local here, and took the animation program. So he knows still a lot of stuff that I really don't know how to use Maya and different computer programs to kind of augment his stuff. But the work that he sent as samples, you could see the talent there, and I could see where it was kind of raw, but it had so much potential. And I thought the questions that he asked were really good, and so he just kind of hit all the right notes that way. And he was local. He was within, I think, 20 minutes of where I live, so it was very easy for him to just come on by. And I thought, you know what, I'll have him by. I'll help him with a couple of things, and he learned so fast. He knew so much when I saw him the first time, but I would say, work on whatever heads, arms, whatever it was, and he would come back and he would have worked on that and drawn 100 of them, plus 3 other different things and 100 of those. And so it happened very, very quickly. I feel like I didn't really do that much, to be honest. I did everything I could to try and, teach him what I knew. And when he got some of his first work, I helped him with that a little bit. It's one of the hardest things, and I think people don't realize, is the minute you get work, you really can get exposed if you don't know things. I've had it happen to me. I know Jay had it happen to him. Everybody does. And so I felt like I could help him at least be able to overcome. And this is with the course. So much of what goes into drawing those pages is the kind of thing that you really won't encounter until you have a script that you can't just, fudge if you don't like it. So, yeah, and he learned so fast. I really didn't help much. So I'm not getting sound here. I don't know if it's on my end.
Oh shoot, sorry, I muted
there we
myself.
go. Okay. Okay.
Whoops. Sorry.
I'm here on my own. Can't do this myself.
I'm gone. Ask yourself some questions. Yeah. Okay. I was just saying that if he tells that story to people, I'm sure you made a big difference on him. So.
Well, it's definitely very gracious of him to mention it. He really doesn't have to. He made his own career, so I'm always grateful.
Nice. Oh, and by the way, you want to change that link at the bottom to the question link? If you guys want to ask questions, it's that link, burger.com/508. There you go. And on to the next question. So, hey, David. First, I want to thank you for your videos and streams. They're very insightful, and you're always patient and polite. My question for you is, what type of superhero pose is the most satisfying to draw?
You know, I love drawing fight scenes. They're always so much fun. I just really like the visceral aspect of drawing comics. But my favorite kind of a pose to draw is that scene you see when, the hero or the villain shows up, or they're just about to attack. It's that moment of tension. That's always my favorite. So the shot where you're looking up at them, something kind of like this. Here's Stan showing up and he's about to fight the villain, and that kind of a shot's always a lot of fun for me.
Yeah, I don't think my muscles are big enough.
Oh,
I'm just kidding.
Maybe right. Here we go.
Oh, there you go. That's more accurate. Oh man. Now my legs look really.
Yeah, but it's.
But no, dude, I'm just kidding. Obviously, yours was more accurate. Don't.
We're gonna make the arms big.
No. It's not gonna look like me anymore. Now you can make Marshall just like super scrawny. That way, I just look bigger in comparison.
Okay.
He's gonna hate me. You don't have to listen to me. I'm probably gonna say a lot of ridiculous stuff.
Makes it more fun.
Okay. Let's see. This is kind of a broad question, but someone asks, how do you add light and shadows to anatomy? I'm not sure how I would answer that question. Do you have an answer?
I do. Okay, so I'm just going to go over here quickly. And so basically you have a light source, and I'm just going to create a directional light source just like this with an arrow. And it's kind of coming inward toward the picture. So you're looking, it's not directly from the side. It's a terrible arrow, but there you go. And so if you imagine a bit of anatomy, I'll draw it like a long oval. And anatomy is essentially these kinds of shapes, put together. Mm-hmm. What you want to do is treat it like a sphere. You just shadow away from the light around the form, just like that. And so when you're shadowing anatomy, I'm going to shadow that side of this form, that side of this form, and that side of this form. And where they connect, you can really see that shape kind of connecting in there. And that's a big part of how you do it right there. And it's a very simple thing. The other thing to bear in mind is that when you're drawing an arm, for instance, your shadow is all going to be along one side like this. And so if I draw an arm that's got a little bit more detail on it, get it in there. It's a little sloppy, I know. But what I want to do is I don't want to draw a shadow that's equally as wide on each of these parts, because the overall arm has lighting. So it's going to be much thicker here where it's thicker here. And then as I come around the arm, it gets thinner and thinner as it rounds toward the light. And that's a really important thing to bear in mind. And it makes your lighting look much more realistic when you light the whole thing as one piece, as opposed to just individual pieces equally lit as if they're not rounding around an overall form. So that's really, in a nutshell, how you do it. There's more to it.
That's a great explanation.
Yeah, it gets you most of the way.
Yeah, so you're thinking of your major muscle forms, and each one of them is basically like a cylinder or a block or whatever. And
right.
Each has a plane change, yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Kenneth Mark asks, this is a great question. Hi, David. In many cases, everything is bigger or overly emphasized in superheroes in regarding to their anatomy to convey power, nobility, good, evil, etc. What aspects of the human anatomy do you try to keep grounded in reality when drawing these idealized superhumans?
That is a really good question, and I don't have an immediate answer for that. My anatomy is not academic in any way. It really is. It's me looking at my favorite artists and saying, I love how this artist draws arms and this artist draws, hands, that kind of thing. So I would say the parts that I like to keep as close to realistic as possible are things like wrists, elbows, knees, especially wrists. I struggled with this early on. I want to draw these massive arms. Like this is, and we're going to draw this one huge. It's going to be a big arm. But
Is it just gonna be one arm? That's big.
well, he's got the other hand here, but it's kind of, you can't really see it too much. So yeah, it's kind of going to be one arm.
But it's just a buff arm, and then my legs are gonna be really skinny.
Yeah, really skinny.
God damn it.
Bitter.
Oh man, like.
But
I do that to myself, I guess.
I found if I draw this arm really big and I draw a huge wrist, it can just look really odd. I mean, you could do it, but I don't like that look. So my connection points I try to keep pretty much to human proportions. But otherwise, like for instance, my chest, I've got my chest here, and then I've got my rib cage here, and you can see I'm really projecting out my rib cage. And it's like actually almost like a big plate there. And you really don't see that on a human being. That's not really anatomically correct at all. And that's another thing that I really debated with. Do I want to be more anatomically correct, or do I want it to look like kind of a traditional superhero? And I angled towards superhero because that's the kind of work that I really wanted to do, and it's the stuff that I love. So it took me a while to kind of reconcile all those little decisions. What's correct versus what really works for a comic. And there's no right answer for that, really.
I would imagine it would be different for each character that you draw, because it's like their personality, their story really determines what their physique is and what you emphasize, right?
Yeah, well, and not just that, but also their movement. Spider-Man is much more, he'll crouch down, and his arms and legs go all over the place, whereas a character like Colossus is going to be big and more imposing. And you really have to be aware of that. That's something that editors, by the way, really look for in art. They don't need you to draw their characters, but they need you to draw ideally characters that they're familiar with, so they can say, okay, this, Batman looks like, even if it's a Marvel editor and you have Batman stuff, if you can make Batman look and feel and move like Batman, they know you can do the same thing with their characters.
Right. Yeah, I guess Spider-Man's a really good example of a character where the anatomy's not bigger. It's actually just more lean and mobile.
It is actually, I drew some Spider-Man years ago, just when I was starting out at Marvel, and they were very concerned because I was so known for drawing much more, characters like this, and they were afraid that I wouldn't be able to pull it off. And I had to prove I can make them thinner.
Yeah. And then you also have like villains that have a much broader range, right? Like you got Joker, who's just, it goes the opposite direction, right? Where he's like really scrawny, bony.
Yeah.
Sometimes, I guess not always, but
it depends on the artist, and there's so many interpretations, and they're all great. I really, in a lot of ways, I enjoy drawing villains more just because they have so much more, cartooning and creativity in how you can draw them. Whereas heroes, you kind of have to stay within the idea of a hero. I think ideally, and whatever you want to do for your comic is fine, but generally speaking, I kind of see heroes as a bit of a power fantasy. If you're reading the book, if it's a female hero and you're a woman or whatever it is, but you see yourself in that hero, ideally, I think that's when it's strongest. And so you want that to be an idealized figure that people can imagine, this is what, I wish I could be, So, and I think that's why Spider-Man's so relatable. He's this great hero. He looks great in the costume, but he lives a life that we kind of all can relate with. So, I don't know if I have the best answer for that. There you go. That was it.
Are you starting over on me?
No. This is.
This is part of the process.
Yeah. So what I do is I just do a really quick. It wasn't always going to look like that,
of course.
A really quick.
That's the plan.
Rough in, and then I can just go in and do detail. And I didn't really bother putting any costume detail in, mostly because I'm not sure what I'm going to do yet. I'm going to be making this up as we go, but So from here I can start to draw it a little bit more tightly, and this is where the wheels are going to fall off a little bit because I am not a caricaturist. So if this looks even remotely like you, it'll be a win.
Are you looking at a photo of me?
I am. I'm looking at you in that picture that we had in the background.
Oh, of the draftsman
thumbnail?
Oh, God. Wait, let me look it up so I could tell people exactly what episode that is.
I'm tempted to give you that hairdo.
Do you know what the title of that episode was?
Episode 3.
Oh, it's episode 3?
Yeah, that's what it says.
Oh, my God. Of season 1? Oh, jeez.
just says here, I've got Draftsman episode 3 thumbnail.
Wow.
So
Okay. Here, I'll find it. Oh. Draftsman. Yep, it is season 3, season 1, episode 3. Oh no! Wait, I have a wig on that one, like photoshopped hair on that one.
I'm really thinking about doing that too.
No. Oh man.
I'm not going to do that.
Yeah. Okay. And I'm like really pissed off in that one, huh?
Yeah, but you know, that's actually part of what I liked about them.
Right. Yeah.
Superheroes
Like,
don't smile. At least the ones that I draw.
yeah. Okay. Next question. What is important, learning gesture first or learning anatomy first?
Gesture. Because gesture gives you the whole figure. That in order to make your figures really work, you need to be able to draw a whole figure. I think that the most important thing to learn first is proportion. Just simple proportion. How many heads tall the figure is, how long the arms are, where they end. You know, in really basic terms, if you've got your chest here, your pelvis here, your arm's going to come down. Here would be my belly button. My elbow would be around my belly button. The hand rests just below the crotch area. And knowing those things and getting really comfortable with it and letting it become automatic, you need to get to a point where you're not having to kind of measure those things as you draw. It does not take long. You'd be surprised. That's step one. And then gesture drawing. The importance of gesture drawing is I can learn all of the muscles that go into an arm, but ideally, for me to be able to draw an arm really well, I need to be able to just break it down really quickly. And this is just drawing a gesture. I'm really not drawing real anatomy on there. I'm just drawing a basic shape. And the closer I can get to something that actually looks, and I know it's not the best, but I'm under pressure here, you know. But yeah, the closer you can get to something that looks kind of finished in a really quick gesture, then you can actually go in and you can put your anatomy on top of it and really make it much more accurate. But you'll have a framework that really works. Whereas anatomy without a good just overall shape is going to start to look very clunky. So but anatomy, obviously, it's incredibly important.
Yep, I agree. Let's see. Oh man, I lost my place. There's so many questions. Hey David, I'm wondering what ways has your work changed in recent years as you've gotten more involved with YouTube, streaming, and social media, both in terms of business and how you approach your drawings? For example, when drawing while streaming. What are the biggest benefits and drawbacks of working as an artist in the social media age that you have experienced? I guess that's 2 questions.
Yeah, sort of. Now, okay, so it hasn't changed too much. The way that I draw on the stream is I do a lot of conventions, or I did, you know, at one point, and we will again. And I do commissions. And so the way that I approach the drawings that I do on a stream are a lot like a convention. They're convention sketches, essentially. So they're not a huge amount like drawing an actual page. They are. I have the same approach. I just do it, you know, quicker. So I'm fairly used to drawing with an audience too, because I've spent years drawing at the table at conventions. And the first time I did that was a harrowing experience, but I've gotten pretty used to it. And I'm really used to talking while drawing for the same reason. I can't just sit at the table and just stare at my page. You know, people are there to you know, talk to you and, you know, get to know you a little bit. So also, you know, I don't know if you do this, Stan, but I'll sit on the phone and draw for hours. You know, I'm like an old lady.
You're talking to your friends and family? Or?
Yep. Yeah, I can draw and I'm barely thinking. It's hard to do it when you're laying something out, but once it's laid out, yeah, I can pretty much.
No, I'm not the same way. Not at all. No, I cannot focus on my work if I'm talking to somebody. I mean, you can like I could tell your hand doesn't stop moving when you're answering questions. But if you watch like one of my streams, as soon as like a question comes in and I start thinking about it, like I just stop drawing. Like I'm a lot better at it now that I've, you know, taught at an atelier. I taught an atelier for 6 years at Watts, and I got better at it because I had to talk and draw and, you know, talk. But I was drawing and I was talking about the thing I was drawing, right? So they were related. But if I'm drawing like a comic page, I cannot talk about something completely irrelevant to it. It's just my brain can't go in those two places. I don't know how you could do that.
It depends on the stage of the drawing for sure, but yeah, generally,
is it a learned skill? Like, did you get better at that, or were you always like good at that?
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know. I started out in a studio with we had 10 people in a room, and I don't know how we ever got work done. So maybe that's how I learned it. When I started, I sat at the end of a ping pong table because we were running out of room. And so I would get hit with ping pong balls all the time. I was the new guy. That's how it went.
Okay. Yeah. That's funny. All right. Let's see.
The other thing he asked was how it's changed with social media. I would say that
drawbacks. Yeah.
I don't know.
And benefits too.
Yeah, I mean, it's all benefits. Drawbacks would just be time. I'm always behind. And I find everything that I do, no matter what it is, I'm always letting somebody else down. I've got 4 different things that I need to do, and I need to do one of them. I can't do all 4 at once. So that can be a real challenge.
Yeah.
But the benefits are there's really no better way to promote yourself and your work. People get to know you. It's really a great thing. I mean, we're very blessed to be able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of crazy how much of an advantage artists have now over artists just a few decades ago in terms of promoting themselves and just running a business and not having to depend on other companies to do things for them. Yeah. Let's see. Next question. What do you consider to be the defining qualities of a comic book artist versus other types of artists in a destined to be mindset?
In a destined to be mindset. Now, I truthfully don't understand exactly what you mean by that, but I would say being a comic artist means, generally speaking, not having anywhere near the kind of command of the broad range of tools that you need to have if you're an illustrator. You can just use a pencil, and it makes more approachable that way. So it's easier, but it's also harder because you have to be able to draw everything, and you really need to be able to do it from your head. I use reference all the time. I'm using reference for this, and you can see, I don't know if it's helping me too much. I'm doing my best with your likeness here. Maybe it'll look better.
It looks good. I think it looks like a better version of me. Idealized me. I think what he's trying to say, destined to be, probably means like talent. Like you were born this way, you're destined because these are your defining qualities that you just have versus things you learn. That's how I interpreted it.
I know for me, I knew that I liked art. I knew that I could draw when I was young, but I never thought of it as any kind of a serious thing for me at all because I don't draw from reference well. Like life drawing, that kind of thing it's not a strength for me at all. I hated it, and I still really am not very good at it. I'm much better learning the form and being able to turn it in my head and create it myself. It's just so much more comfortable for me. Also, I'm an introvert. I love the idea of being able to create my own little world. I feel like I can kind of get lost in it. And this is why I love drawing backgrounds. As much as I hate drawing backgrounds on a deadline, being able to put my characters into an environment that I'm creating, it's very satisfying. So if that's something that you enjoy, I think it's a job you would really enjoy.
Yeah.
And telling a story, obviously.
What's your favorite on-screen portrayal of Batman?
I'm going to take the original ones, the first ones. I'm drawing a blank here. I'm the worst with names at all times. The ones from the 80s.
I can't help you. Sorry. I can look it up.
I'm thinking Bruce Timm. It's not Bruce Timm. It's anyway, the first one. That aesthetic with the new guy that just did Batman. Again, I can't remember a thing. This is, what I can draw and talk. I just can't draw and talk and think of names.
Oh yeah, I can never think of names. Are you talking about Tim Burton?
Yeah, Tim Burton.
Okay, got it. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I love that whole aesthetic that he did. My favorite actor from is Ben Affleck. It's my favorite, and I know he's got his detractors. It's fine. I just thought he was really good.
Did you like um, just his acting in that one, or you just like is that also like one of your favorite movies with Batman?
It's not one of my favorite movies, truthfully, but I thought he was a great Batman just as an actor.
Yeah,
I think in terms of movies, I would have to go with the Christopher Nolan,
yeah.
Christian Bale. You know. But for me, it's so much of it's visual. And Christian Bale, those movies, Christian Bale was great, but those movies were very realistic. Like Gotham City looked like Chicago, kind of,
Yeah,
and that just lost a little bit. You know,
yeah. That's funny.
like a shame.
Oh gosh, there's so many really long questions. I want to screen them before I ask you. I'm gonna skip to another shorter one here. Um, let's see. Hey David, any quick tips on how to keep inking from looking flat? How do you utilize line weights?
Let me finish this hand, and I will show you.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, so
He's got a crosshatch lesson on Proko,
I do. That's right. Yeah.
and
Okay.
also a lot on in your new course, right? On
A lot
crosshatching.
actually. Yeah, and it's one thing I didn't mention. I also take one page completely to a finish, and you see every step of the way for that. And then also the inking, and I ink it three different ways. You know, traditional, old school traditional tools, and kind of more new school traditional tools like this right here. This is a pen. You can get a thin line, you can bring it thicker, and it gives you quite a bit of character in the line. Those sorts of tools. And then I took one of the panels. Uh, I had pencils that were looser than this and just went right into inks with it. So it was a range of different processes, basically the whole way that I do it.
I'm pretty sure there's probably like 20 comments already in the thread asking what pen that is. So you want to just answer that so
don't know.
people don't have to, or is that, or you can't read that, huh? It's not in English.
It's not in English, but I can tell
Okay.
you it's a zebra.
Oh, okay, cool.
It's a super fine. It's the finest one that you can get. These are not my favorite though. My favorite, I've got them right here, in a bag. Anyway, these are Tombows. Here, you know what? I'll never be able to pull it out of the bag in time here. But this is a Tombow brush pen, Furunosuke, and these are the hard tip. And when they say hard, they just mean not as soft as the soft tip. I don't have the hand control for a soft tip. If you do, they are actually a better pen. They give you more range. I something I fought with my whole career is I don't have the kind of control that a lot of artists do. So in terms of
Maybe you move your hand too fast.
maybe, yeah.
I'm pretty sure you'd be able to control a soft. I mean, you got incredible control of your lines.
Thank you. I tend to build my lines.
Yeah, but still, even each like
And there are artists that
stroke
will
is.
throw these beautiful, like all over the page. Jim Lee. The first day that I started working in comics, I went to Homage Studios, and that was his studio along with Mark Silvestri. They're both Image founders. I'm sure you guys know who Jim Lee is. I would hope he is the biggest comic artist, I think, of all time. And watching him pencil out his lines through the page, I've never seen anything like it. And I aspired to that for a little while until I realized that it wasn't going to work. It took me a while I think that was the biggest impediment for progress for me, trying to draw like other people when I just didn't have, I had to actually work with what I had. Mm-hmm. But line weights. So the idea is I'm going to light it same way again. And so whenever I come under like an underside curve, it's going to get thicker. Whenever I have a connection point, I want it thicker inside the connection point. And when it's pointing toward the light, I want it nice and thin. So here, this will be a little thicker. It's an underside curve away from the light. This will angle toward thicker away. I've got a connection point. I want to make sure that that's really shored up there. That'll be a little thinner. And then it's thicker here as it angles under. And I go the whole way through like that. And then when I come to the other side, I still want to make sure to accentuate my connections. But then it gets nice and thin. And you can actually go very, very thick with your, lines, as long as you follow that rule and it doesn't end up overpowering your picture. So that's really all there is to it. It's actually a very simple skill. It's just a matter of keeping these kinds of heavy lines away from where your light is hitting.
Okay. Oh, ready for the next one?
Yep.
Okay. So this one's coming from Chris Dave, someone who watches your Monday night draws all the time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So this one's related to balance of reference and imagination. It's a kind of a long question, so I'm just going to kind of paraphrase here. So basically what he's saying is that sometimes reference can't provide you with the example you need to create like a really dynamic pose, like something you just can't get the right reference, and so you have to invent from your imagination.
Yes.
Because some of the best poses come from imagination, they're more dynamic than reference. Yeah. So he's wondering how to avoid using too much reference or not using enough reference. This is from the point of view of drawing specifically comics.
Now, I'm going to give you a non-comic answer for that one, and that is that animators for Walt Disney did some of the most incredible dynamic drawing. And they were able to do it, I think, because once a week they would do life drawing. They would do like I think they would. This is what I heard. I never worked there, so I can't. But I heard that they would spend one day of their work week just on study, and it really that is what it comes down to. To be able to draw dynamic poses of your own and really make them work and make them dynamic, you need to look at artists that really do it well and copy a bunch of their poses and then try them yourself and just fill sketchbooks with that stuff. That is the most important thing you can do, and it makes all the difference for when you need to create a character of your own. Your body has constraints, so you'll find if you bring your arm back, I can only go just about that far, but that's a tension point, and you can really use those kinds of things, knowing where your tension points all through your body are, because you want maximum action in a pose. You want it to be as dynamic as possible, so you want to push the body to those points and then not beyond. And you can really only learn that from looking at other artists that do it well. You can look at life. I have to be honest. I wanted to be a comic artist. I didn't want to be an artist. And so I looked at comic artists, and all of my influences really, there are painters that I love. There are artists that I love. And I've looked at some life for things also a little bit, but really for the most part, I learned all of my poses from other artists, and I'm sure you could tell. You could probably pick them out. Hey, that's Joe Madureira's pose from whatever. And they're never exactly like it because I'm not just opening that book and looking at it, but it's something that I've kind of internalized, and you need to do that. So I think you got it on mute again.
God, sorry. I was saying there's so many questions. I don't know how we're gonna get through these, but I'll have to filter. Drawing the figure. Do you always need to start with gesture drawing, then forms to details, or could you skip gesture and start from forms and details?
I don't know how you could skip gesture. There are so many ways that you can approach anything. One thing that I don't think is a rule you can break is starting with, because the idea also is, where do you want here's your panel, where do you want to put your figure? And so I'm going to say, just as a really simple shape, I'm going to put my figure here, and it's going to take up this room right here. And I mean, that's a quick gesture right there, but I need to know that because that gives me my general sizing and placement for the character. And then I can just start to rough in a character into that spot, and he can be whatever. Like, I mean, it doesn't matter. But the point is that I need to have that figure established, and that's a gesture drawing. How you can avoid that is, I'll tell you how you can avoid it. If you are tracing photographs, then I think avoid it.
Yeah, but then you never exaggerate.
Right.
Don't you usually exaggerate the gesture a little bit if you're using a reference?
Only if you can, I think. And I think you'd need to be able to do gesture drawing in order to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
So
like most of the time when you're drawing comics, I mean, I guess do you even use reference anymore?
Sometimes, but not usually. No.
Not usually. Yeah. But when you do you try to stick to the photo, or do you try to exaggerate the gesture and push it a little bit?
I never look at photos for gesture.
Okay. Then you create your own gesture for that. Yeah. So
Yeah. So when I look at photos, I actually try and stick to the photo as closely as I can, which is never that close because I'm terrible at doing it. But so I actually don't worry about being too close because I just never pull it off. And I will, I'll tell you right now, a lot of times for something like this, especially an actor or something, I've actually got an assignment that I have to do that has an actor in it coming up tomorrow. I have to be working on it. And I'm going to trace the face. I'll tell you right now. So what I do is I just take my board and I just put it up against my screen. I've got a pretty thin screen and I just trace it right on there because I can't do likenesses. So, and you know what? It's a tried and true technique. It's not exactly, all the illustrators, that's how they work too. So,
but that's just for the face, right? That's not
right. That's
the whole composition. Right?
If I was going to do it for the whole composition, honestly, they wouldn't bother.
They wouldn't hire you.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. My question to the person that asked that is, why would you want to skip the gesture? It's like the quickest part of the process.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's like you could spend a few minutes making sure that foundation is good and dynamic, and then the rest of it takes a way longer time. All those details take so much longer, and it'd be a waste of time for you to do that without a good gesture underneath. So it doesn't make sense to skip it.
No, I mean, I guess as a thought experiment, that makes sense. But for practical purposes, I couldn't see.
Yeah. Someone's asking about Bridgman and Hogarth. Have you studied them at all?
Bridgman extensively. I love Bridgman. He's very foundational for me. I had an artist named Kyle Hotz. He's an incredible artist, still working, who was one of the first people to look at my art at a convention, and he recommended that I look at Bridgman. This is Bridgman's Guide to Life Drawing, and copy every picture in the book, and then close the book. Obviously, I couldn't do it. I would look at the picture, close it, and then try and do my own version. And I went through the entire book twice that way, and it made an enormous difference. I was a different artist afterwards.
Nice.
And I feel like it's very foundational to everything that I do. Hogarth, I have not really looked at all, and it's a sensitive topic because the last thing I want to do is say something negative about Hogarth, and I don't mean it, because you have to look at what works for you. And for me, Hogarth didn't work for me. It's just stylistically I couldn't reconcile it. So it's not negative. I didn't find it for me.
Yeah, it makes sense. I feel like both Hogarth and Bridgman have very, very specific styles. Like Bridgman is very heavy with his style on structure, right? Like he'll destroy the accuracy of something to just make sure it's structurally sound and interesting, right? And then Hogarth is the opposite, where he'll destroy the structure of something to make sure that the gesture is like super dynamic, and to the point where it sometimes breaks everything so much that it just doesn't even look good.
Yeah,
so dynamic.
I really struggled with trees and rocks and anything organic for a long time because I just needed that structure. Like it was so, it was something I could kind of grasp onto. And so, I think that's why Hogarth, I struggled with it.
Yeah. And for me, like gesture isn't about making everything super curvy and dynamic. Like sometimes the structure needs to have a feeling of solidity. Like this thing is solid and strong. That's part of gesture. And so, you got to include some elements of structure in your gesture. That's my personal opinion about Hogarth. Is sometimes he doesn't follow that. He'll just make everything noodly.
Yeah, which I think is great.
Yeah, sometimes it works.
I think it's great in conjunction with other things.
Yeah. This one's, I think, a question that a lot of people probably have. I've been studying drawing fundamentals seriously for 1 year, and my goal is to do comic art. Penciling. What percentage of my study time would you recommend using to draw from imagination versus copying comic masters? So like master studies versus practicing fundamentals. So those three things. How did you spend your practice time during your formative years?
I'm going to say I probably spent about 50-50. What I would do is I would spend a couple hours just copying, like Alan Davis is a great artist, worked for Marvel and DC and still is. that's really influential for me. And I would draw, 10 faces from Alan Davis, and then I would just try and draw some of my own. And that's when things would really grind to a halt. But I would spend, a couple hours doing that. And I tried to schedule my time too. And so I would say, okay, this week I'm going to work on arms. And I would even write notes to myself, like everything that I'm trying to learn. I'd have pages full of this useless. I'd never read it again. I've actually gone back and looked at this. It's very embarrassing to read some of that stuff, but I did it. And, just to organize my thoughts, studying that stuff. But you can't learn if you aren't taking in new information, and you can't internalize it if you aren't making it your own. So you do need to do both. And I'd say 50-50 is a good number.
Yeah. Cool. Let's see. Do you want to talk a little bit about your drawing before we move on to more questions? Like, what do you? I mean, I think we haven't even talked about the drawing at all. So maybe let's come to that.
So I have to admit, I didn't make the arm quite as big as I could have.
That's okay. I felt guilty trying to influence your drawing, so I'm glad
I really don't mind at all. I don't mind. But so for your figure, he's obviously got P for Proko. He's like your standard kind of Captain America sort of hero, and then I'm drawing Marshall as a villain, and I'm kind of making. He's going to have a skull here. I think that would kind of work. You go put some skulls on his belt.
Nice. Is he a villain or is he a hero?
Oh, of course.
Okay, cool.
Like I said, he's not here to defend himself.
Nice. That's great. So is he partnering up with Skelly? Is that why he's got skulls?
Actually, that's actually a good idea for a logo. It's Skelly.
Yeah, Skelly is
thinking about.
Oh man, Skelly and Marshall teamed up against me. I love it. I'm sure this isn't nearly as exciting for everybody watching as it is for me. I'm just here to enjoy this.
Really different for me. I'm used to drawing like every live stream that I'll draw, Wolverine or Captain America or Batman. I don't usually just try and make something up as I go along. So with likenesses too.
You did a great job. I could totally tell that's me and Marshall.
I think somebody would have to. You would have to know. That's the problem.
I mean, well, yes, okay. I mean, I guess so, because it's still kind of at a line drawing stage. You didn't caricature much to like really reveal a specific character, but
yeah, when it's just not in my skill set to do that. Unfortunately, there are comic artists. J. Scott Campbell is phenomenal at that, but yeah, I don't do that well.
Oh man, I love it. Marshall's got spikes. Have you thought about like our powers and stuff?
Oh yeah, I know all that stuff totally.
Oh, so what's my power and what's?
I didn't know you were gonna actually.
Oh, you don't want to say?
No, I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I'm not
you're sarcastic. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a lot deeper than I was thinking.
Okay.
This is part of the reason why I'm bad with caricature. And you know what? I'm gonna say part of the reason why I loved comics is, and I love people, but again, I'm a real introvert, and I tend to not be people focused as much as I could be. And so, yeah, you asked me what their powers are, and it has not even crossed my mind because I just don't think like that.
I guess you're used to people coming to you with the story already established, and then you have to illustrate it.
I am, yeah, for sure.
Have you ever made your own comic?
I have. It's been a long time. I did a couple of creator-owned comics back in the 90s at the first company that I worked for Mark Silvestri at Image Comics. And I have not. When I did them, I thought, I could do this anytime. So when I left the books, I thought, I'll just make another one. And then I started at Marvel and DC, and I have not had a chance to go back. So, and I'm doing a creator-owned comic now, but I'm doing it with a writer. So I have that kind of safety net of somebody that actually thinks these things through, which is great.
Yeah.
Really, I need it.
Yeah, maybe people in the comments, you could suggest some powers for Marshall and I, based on what David has already drawn.
Yeah, that would be very helpful. I would appreciate it.
And then John in the Slack, if you see any good ones, shoot them over. Let's see. I'm finding it difficult to get back into drawing. I find myself drawing for a few days and then I stop drawing. I really want to get excited about my drawing, but it doesn't feel like it's there. Any advice on recovering from this?
Um, it's I wish I could say that that's not a problem, that, or it's a problem that's just easy to overcome. The fact is that drawing is, especially when you're learning, a very, very mentally draining and taxing and emotionally difficult thing to do, because you put your ego on the line every time you draw a picture. And so you have to acknowledge that it's a tiring, difficult thing to do, and be gentle with yourself. At the same time, you need to be disciplined, and that really is the answer. It's like everything, and I feel so hypocritical in saying that, because I've been trying to get the discipline to start exercising this year, and it has not happened. So but if that's what you want to do, and it's drawing, you need to acknowledge the fact that you're not going to want to do it a lot of the time. It's not going to go easily. You're not going to enjoy it. Drawing pictures for a living, there are not too many jobs that compare. It's a great job. I love it, but there are times I really struggle and I just don't want to be doing it. And the only way that I've been able to make it a career is to draw during those times too. So you do kind of have to decide what you really want, and then push through those times. I really wish that I could say, here's a strategy for doing that. I don't know, other than to just sit down and do it. I know for me, my hardest thing is email. I'm afraid of email. It's like a phobia almost. And so I actually wake up in the morning and I kind of shake my head and I just open it. And once it's open, I can do it. So, maybe that's sit down at the table, pick up your pencil, just start, and then you'll be good.
I'm with you, man. Email is the worst.
Yeah.
My phobia for email gets worse and worse, like every month. It's like I just can't do it.
And it's like career detrimental. It's a real problem.
Yeah. But it's like, because it's impossible for me to get through everything in there, it's like it's hard to even go in.
Yep.
Yeah. Let's see. So one person, Didier, asks, I'm making my own comics, doing all by my own. So because I'm not that good yet, I don't think Image or Dark Horse or something like that is going to buy my stories. So what do you think is the best way to get stories out to the world? Like, any recommendation for pages to upload comics, or a tip for someone to get his or her story published by Image or Dark Horse?
Getting published by Image or Dark Horse right out of the blue with no other experience, if you're not working with someone that does have that experience, nothing is impossible, obviously, and I wouldn't want to suggest that, but it is extraordinarily difficult, and I wouldn't set it as a goal. I would say probably a more healthy goal would be to put it out online and just put it up for free. You're doing this yourself, so there's no outlay of cost, and you're learning, and you acknowledge that it's not where it needs to be yet. So I think you really want to get that experience and do the work, but let it be what it is right now. And as you get better and you have more experience and you kind of know what you're doing, you have a few different options for getting published. One is through a publisher, and that can be difficult, but it's obviously doable. Another one is just using a Kickstarter, and this is why social media can be incredibly useful for you. You build a relationship with your audience, and for something for anything creative like this, we're not doing anything essential here. We're doing entertainment, and people have no obligation to enjoy your entertainment, so you want to value your customers and the people that support you as much as possible. And I think if you do that, you can create a customer base that will allow you to get your stuff out there and hopefully make a living doing it. That's a really good way to go, and I think a lot of people are having a lot of success that way.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, kind of two different routes, but neither of them are just plug and play. they both are very challenging. I would say it is easier to get work working on somebody else's stuff if you're looking, Image or Dark Horse or Marvel, DC, all those companies. Getting work just on a work for hire basis is probably a more realistic goal at first.
Yeah, it seems it's kind of odd to want to be sell your comic to a big company like that when you say that you're not really good. Like you're not good yet, and so how like why would they pick up your stuff? I feel like what you just said, David, about using social media to try to promote it would make more sense. But if you're not good yet, and you know that your drawing quality is really not up to par to compete with all these, thousands of other comics out there, I think you have to like lean into it that you're not good yet. Like Dogman, or Captain Underpants, right? Like those drawings aren't that good, but it's like it leans into it. It's like purposefully bad. Or like all the web comics where they just like use stick figures. Those rely on the story to just be really good. So if that's something you are good at, you could lean into it, and you could actually get a lot of people following your stuff online. And you don't need a publisher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
By the way, Stan, this will look better soon.
What are you talking about? It looks awesome.
It's the layout. I always feel very sensitive at this point because it's just like this flat,
I think you're the only one feeling that right now. Do you actually feel like people are thinking that it's not good?
Yes, and
Oh my god.
especially you know what, it's worse. I'm over here on your channel. You know what I mean? So I feel like the pressure's on. I can't make this not be good. So yeah, that's 90% of what I'm sitting here thinking. I'm drawing, answering questions, and freaking out in my own head.
Wow. I mean, guys, if you could see that this feeling of thinking that your stuff sucks never goes away. Like this is proof of that.
Yeah.
Like even when you're as good as David, you still feel like your stuff sucks. So you're just gonna have to get used to that feeling forever.
Yeah, you do. And I think the worst thing you can have happen to you is to stop feeling that, because I've certainly met artists that don't feel that at all, and they probably should.
So. Yeah, that's true. If you feel like if it's the opposite problem where you feel like your stuff is good and it's not, like you're less likely to get good than if you just think your stuff sucks all the time.
Yeah, or stay good, which is such a sad problem. But a lot of artists, you get older, and I've put so much thought into this over the years because I knew I can't do anything else, so this was it. So I didn't want to not be able to do it. And I've seen so many artists fade, and I know exactly why, or at least I'm pretty sure I know why. And that is, if you just draw yourself and you never study and you decide you know exactly what you're doing and you're an expert at what you do, eventually it's like handwriting. The older you get, unless you make a conscious effort, it will get sloppier and sloppier to the point where it's unreadable. And the same thing will happen with your art. And eventually you'll look back 10 years and you will not be the same person that created something that actually, had some quality to it, and you won't be able to do it. I mean, you could go through the work of trying to relearn, and I think you could totally do it. An artist could do that. The problem is, for the most part, the artists that really fade like that, generally speaking, feel like they've made it, and you really don't want to let your ego get in the way of your progress.
Yeah.
And that happens for sure.
This question. Oh, go ahead.
I'm thinking he should maybe have some energy coming off his hand. What do you think?
Yeah. Whatever, man. What kind of energy is it? Like, what does this energy do?
I don't know. See, I was kind of hoping somebody would have an answer for what his power is.
So I shoot knowledge. I haven't heard anything back yet, but maybe I shoot knowledge at people. I don't know. That sounds really stupid, actually.
I'm thinking.
I mean, I'm a teacher primarily. But let's see. Let me see if John actually said anything about people's suggestions.
I'm gonna rough something in quickly, and then I can change it.
There's a question in here related to the previous one, kind of. Let's see. About like working with studios and stuff. So how do you get an internship at a comic studio, and do you have to be on a pro level, or do they help you improve and get your art up to that level?
Internships at comic studios just don't exist now.
Oh, wow.
And
Interesting.
it's very sad to say that because I got so much from it and I know so many artists that did. So I wish I could say, this is how you go about it. And it's, but it's just not something that's really happening right now. And it was actually really unusual when it was happening. Image Comics, when they started, they had very, very deep pockets. They were selling through the roof. And so they ballooned really fast, and it made, they could basically sell anything. It didn't matter what they put out, it would sell. And so they were just getting anybody that they could find to draw a book. And and so they started studios so they could actually just develop talent and get them to work on things. And so, I learned so much that way, but it's just not something nobody's been doing that for quite some time. It's been many years.
Interesting.
So yeah, unfortunately, that like my way of getting into the business just does not exist anymore. Now there are other ways, and I think I would have made it in. I think anyway. I actually the weekend that I got hired, I fought for 2 years trying to get a chance, and another company. It was a small independent company offered me a job that same weekend that I started at Top Cow as an intern. So I would have done that. It would have been a different path. I don't know where I would be now, but and that still certainly exists. I would say the best way to get work is conventions. You bring your work to a convention. You can show it to Marvel and DC. That's a tough way to go. They don't necessarily really hire much that way, but it's certainly possible. The smaller companies are a great avenue for it. So, and there's also DeviantArt, there's Instagram. If you're doing work, and the truth is really, if you're doing the kind of work that they want to publish and you're doing it well enough, they will find you. They have, there are times, so I do a review stream where we review people's artwork, and something I've really tried to keep away from reviews is commenting on somebody's style, because it's not my business to do that. At the same time, it can be a little tough because I know that publishers publish certain kinds of work, and it's not just big superhero kind of work, that kind of thing. Like, they publish a range, but they definitely have the sorts of things that they publish and the sorts of things that they tend not to. And I feel like it is good advice to say, okay, decide what kind of artist you are, and then angle toward the kind of work that you're seeing being published. And you, once you get in, can get more and more creative with what you do and find more of your own personal style. But I really recommend that you do the kind of work that publishers are already publishing to get in. Bill Sienkiewicz is a really great example of that. I don't know if you're familiar with Stan, but
Yeah.
he's okay, yeah, he's a painter.
Booth at Comic-Con every year.
Right, he's an absolute genius. When he started, he was a Neil Adams clone. I was a Mark Silvestri clone. We were all clone of something. So, and he really got a lot of flack from people that is saying, you just draw exactly like Neil Adams, but that got him in, that got him work, and then obviously you see where he is now, and he has been for 30 years. So, I think that's a really good way to go. And I don't know if it would have been easy for him to get work doing that, and his work is beautiful, but editors, they can have a tendency to lack imagination. It sounds like a terrible thing to say, but
is it their job to have imagination?
It is, but editors have so many jobs. They need to make sure that you turn in the work on time. And so it's a risk to hire somebody new that you're unfamiliar with. They take a major risk in doing that. So, and you have to acknowledge that if you're a new artist, you need to be better than what they're publishing, because otherwise they'll just keep publishing what, they know that artist that you think that you're better than, and you may be, that artist meets a deadline, That's an important thing. So there are a lot of factors.
Yeah. So with internships, correct me if I'm wrong, but like the main the most beneficial thing is working alongside the professional artists there, right? Like just
Yeah.
seeing what they're doing. So I guess people can get a similar thing now with like some online workshops. Like I know that Will Sprataccio, Ryan Benjamin, Alex Sinclair, and one other guy I forgot. They have the Comic Pro Boot Camp,
Yeah.
where they do like monthly workshops, and it's very affordable. I've been talking to Ryan Benjamin and Will's for a while now, and so I think like that kind of stuff is like the internships might be going away, but there's new things coming up that kind of replace that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So you just got to be active in looking for that stuff and just actually committing to it and doing those things, like
Yeah.
we have
Well, and
access.
I think it's actually in a lot of ways just as good as having an internship, because um, I watch so many people. Most people quit that started at Top Cow where I started, because it's a difficult thing. You put your work out there, it can break people. I swear, it almost broke me. There was a time I thought I'm just not going to make it. I'm not going to make it, and the drive to protect your own ego by quitting and saying, you know what, I could have done it, but I decided to go in this direction instead. It's strong.
Yeah.
So that was a big negative, but I'm kind of going off topic here. I think what I really meant to say is, Mark Silvestri would walk around the studio and look at what we were doing, and this would happen probably once a week, not so often, because he was working on his own book. He was very busy, and he would just give you a couple little tips. Work on this, work on that. Maybe this arm, and he would fix a couple of things. He'd walk away, and I tell you, it's 10 minutes. That's what you would get. And he didn't invest a massive amount of time in people because, frankly, the people that were going to make it were going to make it. They didn't, yeah, you can help, but not everybody was going to make it. And he just couldn't afford to invest too much into somebody that's not going to invest in themselves. And I think if you take one of those courses, Will Sprataccio is phenomenal. He's great. Ryan Benjamin is great. They both worked in a studio system. They both know what they're doing. I think it's, in terms of what you would learn what you would learn in the studio.
Yeah. Ryan's about to come into my studio tomorrow, by the way.
Oh,
little top secret knowledge there.
Yeah,
we're working on stuff. So, like what you were saying, how it's almost as good. I feel like it might even be better online, and like not for everybody, but the fact that it's online, it makes it more accessible to everybody around the world. Because if the internet didn't exist and everything was just internships at studios, you'd have to be in the city. You'd have to be living there where that studio is in order to get that internship. And so only like a really small percentage of the people around the world can actually even participate in that. But now that it's online, like you could be anywhere in the world. You could be in a country that doesn't have any comic studios, and you could study to be a comic artist because you have access to the internet. And I think that's such a big advantage now that is going to create so many more awesome artists in the next few decades. Mm-hmm. That like the education is just spread out around the world and it's accessible to everybody. I think it's so cool.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's see. Hey Dave, what is one perspective tip or advice you have gotten that made everything click when drawing dynamic characters in perspective? One advice, David, that made everything click.
Well,
I want to know that too.
That is a very difficult question. I don't
know if there's an answer.
I have a whole video about drawing figures in perspective on my channel, and I really broke down everything that I know about it. For those videos, and frankly, for practical purposes, that is all that I do. I don't have some kind of other knowledge that I'm using at any time. I want to keep it as simple as possible and just something that really works. So, you could really, if you wanted to, you could draw somebody's head. Here's a cube, and I could run these to an actual perspective point that's still on the page, I think you can see it. Anyway, I could, and really do proper perspective for this whole thing, and then line up my eyes and line up my ear and do everything perfectly. It's just not a feasible thing. You really need to get to the point where you can just draw simple shapes in perspective just out of your head. I'm drawing the same perspective over and over again, but you get the point. And so for heads or bodies, you draw a body from the side. Obviously, it's pretty simple. You draw it from the front. It's wider, and I'm making this really quick, but the point is that you need to be able to turn these forms in space. Here it is from the top. I'm off the page. I'm sorry, but you know what? It's from the top. And if you can do that well, you can draw figures in perspective. And then it really is, for to take it further than that, just check out my video that I've got on drawing figures in perspective. It really breaks it down. I never really, frankly, there was one trick that I learned for drawing perspective for scenes that actually really did change everything. And maybe I should tell you guys about that one. But for figures, there was never a time when I thought, okay, that's it. I think that it just kind of naturally flowed from drawing scenes.
Nice. Yeah, I just looked it up. The video is called "How to Draw Figures in Perspective." So if you guys just type that into YouTube, it'll pop up. Go watch that. That looks like an awesome video.
Yeah.
It's got 250,000 views already.
I was so afraid doing that. Some of these videos, the figures on them are like, they're so terrible because I can't draw, so it's just little stick figures, but
they're in perspective, right?
But they're in perspective. Right?
Nice. I remember reading once that 4 comic pages a day was considered top tier performance. Does that hold true today, or was it ever true?
Never.
Never true.
Never true. If you can do 4 comic pages a day, it means you could do 4 books a month. That is unlikely. It's unlikely that they're going to hire you to do 4 books a month. You're doing half their line at that point. And there is no possible way you could match the quality of the artists that are not doing that. So there was a time Jack Kirby, I had heard could do like 10 pages in a day. And now I'm sure that he had one day where he did 10 layouts in a day and he, fell asleep. And then it, everybody says, that he would just do that. And I don't know. I could be wrong. I don't think he was doing 10 pages in a day. There's just no way. But what publishers want, they want 3 qualities out of every artist that they hire. And, the saying is you really only need to meet 2 of these qualities and be successful. I think if you can meet all 3, then you'll be around for a long time. So the first one is quality. And that is the most important because there are so many artists out there. You need to be able to sell a book as an entertainment business, and if you can do work that people connect with and people are motivated to buy, that is a very big deal. It is the most important thing. And then timeliness is the next most important thing. And it's a mistake to think of timeliness and, you're very, very fast. You don't need to be, you just need to be honest. So if it takes you 5 days to do a page, okay, that's too long. Let's say it takes you 2 days to do a page. So you can't do a monthly book. What you can do is a run of 5 issues that they give you 8 months for. And then you take a break and then you do another. Now, if the quality is good, they are more than happy if they know that going in. If you can only do a page every 2 days and you tell them you can do a page every day and they give you a monthly book and all of a sudden they have deadline problems, they're not going to be happy. So it's about being honest. And they're really willing to work with artists. And I think they would rather work with a slower artist that's better than a faster artist that's not better. And a trap that artists run into, I've seen this happen to artists before, where if you work quickly, but the quality is not really the best, and you do that because an editor calls you up and says, we're desperate, we just need help with this. That's fine, but you can very quickly find yourself to just be like, they won't call you for jobs that actually that require any kind of quality or prestige or anything. They'll call you last minute and give you 2 weeks to do a whole book, and all of your jobs will be that way. Your life will be miserable, but they'll just see you as that guy. It's like, okay, well, we're desperate. The guy's not very good, but hey, at least you'll get it done. You don't want to aspire to that. So no, 4 pages in a day. Look, everybody's different, whatever. No, you know what? I'm going to say, I feel like I could take a stand on this one. You can't do quality that many pages. It's not possible.
Yeah. Even with how fast David's hand moves, it's still not possible.
Yeah. No, not remotely.
Yeah.
I could do a page a day for a monthly comic. I tend to be slower when I ink myself, so, but I can do a page a day, and those are long days.
Yeah.
And I have to make decisions as I'm working on pages. I have to say, okay, just to give you guys an example, I'm going to use the back of this one. I'm running out of room here, but to give you an idea of just how much room you have to give yourself more work, I can draw somebody. Here he is. We're looking up at him, and you can see a bunch of buildings around him, and he's standing. He's in a city, and there you go. And so I have to draw a bunch of buildings, and here's my guy. That would be my panel. Or I could draw that scene. I'm looking down at the guy, and now I'm drawing the ground below him and all of the detail on the ground, the buildings coming up. And let's say I've got other people this is especially when things get difficult. I've got other people walking around past him. Well, now I need to draw all those people full figure all the way around them. Need to make sure that they all work on the same plane and really get that. I don't feel like I'm getting this across as how much more difficult it is to draw a scene like this than it is to draw a scene like this. And so I have to make those kinds of decisions all the time when I'm working on pages. Yeah, I can do the scene like this and I'm doing twice the work, but it's going to be a cool shot. Or I can just cheat it and, maybe I could even just zoom in really close and my figure is much closer and I can just eliminate all that background. And those are decisions that you can make, but you make them at your detriment if you do it too often. You cheat too often. You really need to get those scenes in that establish the page and gives people a sense of, what is it? Not reality, but believability. Like they could imagine that it's real.
Yeah.
I really thought that example drawing was going to be more obvious. It really wasn't. But
I think it's pretty clear, actually. Like one, you're just doing the heads of people walking by. The other one, you're drawing the full body.
Right. And there are some examples where it's much more stark, just how different changing the angle can make things, how much more difficult it can make it. A superhero flying over a city, well above the city. You see a couple little tips of buildings and the superhero in the sky, or you look down at the superhero, you see the whole city below him. That's better.
Yeah, right. Okay, so Lee Davis says, "Hello, Mr. Finch. If you're not already going to talk about this, I'd just like to hear what your first course on Proko is all about and what you would like students to get out of it. Also, what are your plans for future courses in instruction, if any? Thanks a bunch. Thanks.
Well,
Thanks a bunch. I'm really looking forward to your instruction. I've been wanting to get into comics, and I think you're an amazing teacher and artist."
Thank you very much. Well, the course in a nutshell is how to draw a comics page, and I really tried to put everything that I know about how to draw a comics page into it. And so there's a lot of things, basic concepts, and just really breaking down those concepts so we're kind of on the same page. Composition, blacks, and a simple panel design, all those kinds of things, reading the script, and then traps that you can fall into and how to look out for those and avoid them. And then from there, it's laying out a couple of pages from a script, starting with just a simple panel breakdown and then the elements in the panel and breaking it down in such a way that it's not overwhelming, because it can be and it doesn't need to be. And then it goes into drawing a full page with detail, a couple of different methods, inking. So really the whole process. And it was really important to me because I get asked a lot of questions, and I've tried to do tutorial videos about how composition, different things like that. But when it's theoretical, which it always is in more of a just a tutorial kind of an example, it's not as valuable as a real world example. And so that's why I really wanted to have a couple of different pages in there, totally different types of pages, and with you during the video work through. And there are places where I really kind of get stuck, and it's embarrassing. Here I'm supposed to be teaching this stuff, but I think it's so important to see those places where, I've been doing this for years and I'm like, oh no, this didn't work. And now I'm having to find strategies to make it work and make it fit in a panel. I think that stuff is really important. And that's the kind of practical knowledge that really makes all the difference.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting how we, as instructors, we get embarrassed, but like that might be actually more useful to the students to see how you figure that out. Then like they don't care. They still think you're awesome, right? They don't care as much as you do about that mistake, but they learn a lot from seeing it.
I think so. And they're also bound to run into those problems.
Yeah.
And so when you see somebody solving it and finding strategies to make it work, I think it's a useful thing to see.
Yeah, that's one thing that like people don't teach too much, huh? It's like when you do a demo of something, you try to make it like as flawless and streamlined as possible. But then in the real world, when you're actually doing projects, you're running into problems nonstop. You're just constantly solving problems, and like that's kind of. I'm glad you included that stuff and you didn't try to like redo it again to take the mistakes out, because I think that's so useful.
I was tempted. I really was.
You were. I know you were, because it's our ego, right? Like
Yep.
you're like, oh, people are gonna think I suck.
Well, and I
I'm
sent in
unqualified.
when I did this stuff, I sent in the raw, unedited footage, and there are places I
Right.
know where I'm mumbling to myself, like, "Oh no," you know. Yeah.
We're gonna make a reel of just those moments where you're mumbling. Just kidding, of course.
What am I doing with my life?
Yeah. Now's a good time to replace that link on the screen to the course, actually,
Sure.
so that people can go check it out as well.
So how are we doing for time? Did I replace it?
Yep.
Or-
It looks.
okay,
Yep. It's on comic page now. Yeah. Proko.com/comic page, and that's David's course that is now on pre-sale. You guys can get 20% off while it's on pre-sale here.
I don't want to keep you here all night, so I'm gonna.
Well, it's
little
actually
looser.
only 1:30 here.
Okay.
We're good on time. We usually do like 2 hours. I know my stream went on for like 2.5 hours the other day. So you're at 1 hour and 20 minutes so far. You're good. Are you planning on inking it or penciling it?
You know what? Actually, that's a good question. I was just gonna pencil. I would never pencil this detailed if I was gonna ink it for a live stream. Certainly.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So I was just gonna pencil it. But I figured with 2 figures, I could probably do it a little quicker. You know, I didn't want to say, hey, let's do this until 9 o'clock at night, and you know, you're like, okay, we gotta go. So
we got time. I'm sure people will want to see you take it to an end.
You know,
unless you have to go, then
no, I'm good. I just, you know, I'm used to. I usually do live streams with my wife, and she reads the questions. And I have like a hard 2-hour time limit. She gets pretty bitter if I go beyond. So I'm pretty used to, you know, just not having the kind of time that I need.
Yeah. Well, we're still 40 minutes away from 2 hours, so.
All right, and yeah, I could do this for 3. I mean, like I'm fine, but you know.
Well, we can reevaluate at the 2-hour mark again.
Sure. Yeah, I think that sounds good.
Let's see. Hi, David. Any quick tips on? Oh, wait, that one you already answered that one. Let's see. Oh, let me check back in with John again. And okay. Oh, there are suggestions for powers. So I'm just gonna read them off here. So one is critiquing, critiquing powers. Okay. Marshall's power is to distort perspective. That's a good one. That's great. I love it. That's kind of like Inception, right?
You know, maybe I can get some buildings.
Yeah.
All over the place.
How would you distort perspective? That doesn't go with skulls, right? Like,
no,
that doesn't go with skulls. He'd be like boxy. He'd be more boxy, huh? He'd be like perspective dude.
You know, we should have thought of that.
What?
Beforehand. I should have thought of that. I knew this was. See, I never plan well. I knew this was coming, and I've been looking forward to it, but it never once crossed my mind. Yeah, what kind of villain?
Yeah, that's. I like the idea of him partnering up with Skelly. That's fun too. I mean,
yep.
I mean, it makes more sense that he distorts perspective because that's his thing. But personally, I like Skelly more because that's, you know, it makes me feel better because it's Skelly. But let's see. Another suggestion: Marshall's power is to hypnotize victims with great courses lectures. That's a reference to our podcast. Marshall reads the sponsored ads from Great Courses all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And he also just really likes Great Courses lectures, and he's always talking about them. Let's see. Someone else said, Proko leads an energy gesture figure drawing army he shoots out of his arms. Wow. I shoot gesture drawings out of my arms.
I feel like I want to do that. I'm gonna have it like energy here, and then have some figures flying out of it. Actually,
That's awesome. Actually, like shooting gesture drawings, and it's an army of gesture drawings that just like attack people. That's pretty fun.
I think it's gonna work.
Oh
Or-
man, I would actually want to see like an maybe an anime, or not even an anime. I think it would look better in an actual like a movie, live action movie where there's drawings running through the scenes and like attacking people.
And
That
nobody's
would
ever
be
done that.
awesome.
You know how
Yeah.
hard that is to come up with something that nobody's done before?
Yeah, this guy, his name is Joshua Navarro. We're totally taking your idea, man. You did not copyright that, did you? Or
Just to let you know, we're millionaires now, so thank you.
yeah, that's so good. I love that idea. Oh man, those are great. That's a great combo too. Like if I shoot gesture drawings out of mine, and then Marshall distorts perspective, and he can like control the gesture drawings. Like we keep fighting each other in that way. That actually makes sense.
Wow.
You could have some cool, really epic battle scenes.
That
Fighting with drawings.
all of a sudden it's like an actual,
An actual IP.
Yeah.
We should do this. We should actually do this. This is great. How much will it cost for me to pay you to do this? Oh my god. We should do like a full like a book and see if people actually want to buy it. Sell it to DC and Marvel and Dark Horse.
Oh, you can't. But if you sell it to them, then when they make
That's theirs, yeah. Then they make a
Yeah.
movie, and then they make
Not
$1
ideal.
billion. Yeah, they'll make the $1 billion off the movie.
They
It's
will.
True. It's true.
you get a credit at the end, which is nice when that happens.
Credit, yeah. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Man, I'm so glad we asked the audience. Those are
Yeah.
great examples.
It's something I can actually get in there too.
Yeah. Yeah, John, let's give some free courses to those two people that whoever said distorting perspective, and then and then Joshua Navarro for the figure drawing armies out of my hands. You guys get free courses. I love that so much. All right. What comic book stories have influenced you?
My probably the most influential story for me is the Phoenix Saga by John Byrne and Chris Claremont. It's what got me into comics. And other than that, I would be lying if I said stories influence me. It's really art. And so I could tell you, I love Simon Bisley's Judgment on Gotham that he did years and years ago as a painted book. All of Mark Silvestri stuff, all of Jim Lee's stuff. Dale Keown, he did Hulk, which incredible stuff. And then he did a book called Pit for Image. It's a big one for me. Travis Trest, he has not done enough work, but everything he's done, the amount of books that I have not even read the words, which is really terrible, everything Greg Capullo does. I find it's impossible for me to read anything from Greg Capullo though, and not actually end up reading it. His storytelling is so beyond. It's incredible. I just get engaged with the characters, just looking at the pictures, and then I'm reading the story. And most of his stuff is written by Scott Snyder, who is great. So yeah, I'd say I'm a big fan of that stuff for sure. But for the most part, it's really art that I look for.
Nice. Does it make sense to try to train ourselves as sequential polymaths? How much should we practice being good at every aspect of comic creation? Pencils, inks, lettering, etc.
I think you're wasting. Okay, I hate making blanket statements.
Well, it's an opinion.
Okay, I'm going to just tell you my opinion. I'll just be
Yeah.
flat out with it. I might as well.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, he wants your opinion. He's asking you.
Yeah.
So.
I think it's a waste of time to learn lettering. I don't think it's ultimately a waste of time. Down the road, you want to do something all yourself, then hey, great. I don't know why, truthfully, okay, it might be, I wouldn't want to do it, but if you do, that's great. But when you're trying to learn, honestly, learning how to pencil, that is a job. It is not easy. People spend years just learning penciling and struggle. And I think it's a huge mistake to divide your attention among so many different skills. Nowadays, The way that I'm drawing this right now, I hate to say it, but it's, it's a little outdated. Most
Ooh.
artists do the
How?
exact same thing. It's the same process. They just do it on a screen. And
Oh, you mean on paper? That's outdated.
right, yeah.
Oh, come on, man. I mean, yeah, I get it, but I'm so happy that you are doing this on paper. I was totally expecting you to be on a Cintiq or something, and just sharing your screen. And then when I saw the paper, I was like, yes, I'm so happy that you're actually just showing like the traditional way of doing it. I love it.
Yeah, it's so much more enjoyable for me. And my opinion, again, is that I think that learning this is still so much better because I've drawn on an iPad, that kind of thing, and I can do it just as easily as this. But I can do this, and if you only learn how to draw on the computer, you will put yourself in a position of having a very difficult time creating just an original piece of art or just sitting down at a table and drawing something to give to someone. I think it's a huge loss to not be able to do that. And the skill is so much the same, but being able to, let's say, this hand is way too big, probably is. I could just size it right down. Now, you'll notice my hands are enormous, but I do that all the time because it's superheroes, and I find it. I just like that look. So I know it's distorted, but it's a choice. Anyway, I could say, hey, that hand's too big, or the editor could say that, and I just make a selection around it, make it smaller, and I'm done. Whereas for me, if I have to change that, I have to erase it. So there are disadvantages, but then I end up with original art. And I will tell you that if you, and your goal, I should hope, would be to be successful as a comic artist or any kind of artist. And if people like what you do enough, your original art will have a good amount of value, and you are leaving a lot on the table if you don't have original art.
All right. Looks like we got another huge fan. They used hashtag Finch Flock Forever. Is that an official hashtag or?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Okay.
Who is it?
El Padrino.
Hey, it's El Padrino. Good to see you.
All right. Says, hey Dave, any tips on drawing and rendering buildings?
Okay, here we go.
All right. Perspective course right here.
Now, yeah, this is kind of two different things. So I'm gonna draw you a diagram of how I do this because I can't. My screen isn't big enough. So here's my page, and here's my panel. Very small. And so I want one point to be kind of here, and maybe the other point to be here. So for a 2-point perspective, it's off of my page. So what I do is I just take another piece of paper, and I just use 2 pieces of tape like this, and then I use a bit of a longer ruler. And so what I'll do, and I've got a ruler right here, I just draw my point, and I draw a perspective grid. In this, I was talking earlier on about what changed perspective for me and what made it usable. And apologies for all the paint all over my ruler, but I've been really trying to paint lately, and I'm making a mess of everything with it. So here's one side of my perspective. I'm going to draw the other point kind of here. And once I get now, and this is a headache, I know. Nobody wants to be doing the kind of work that goes into laying out a page. You just want to draw the cool stuff. But this is, how long is this really taking me? A minute? Not long. And then I'll just draw vertical lines. I actually have a ruler to do this specifically that keeps it all parallel, but I can be pretty close just like this. And I'll do the whole area. So it's drawn out as a grid. Keep moving here. All right, so that's my area. And I'm going to zoom in. That's a little better. You can kind of see what I'm doing here. So the next step for me is to just erase that down the same way I did with figures. And so I've got a grid here, and I could draw anything on top of that. I could draw the inside of a room. So here's my back wall, and I can see here's the base wall. Here's the top of it. Here's my other wall. I'll draw another wall going down here, maybe some stairs going up. Now, those would, strictly speaking, have their own perspective point. It would go to this point here. I would draw up and then find the point, and I could finish those stairs properly. I don't bother, truthfully. I fake it. Nobody's got time for that. So there's stairs right there. And I could draw a banister from those stairs. And there's the line. And I know you're asking about buildings, but I will show you what I mean in just a minute. And so here's my stairs. And I could put a door here. And just notice when I'm doing all this, I've already got all the lines that I'm using already on the page. So I'm just quickly being able to rough all this stuff in. Maybe a picture on the wall. I could put a couch right here. Here's the back of the couch, arm of the couch, and we're getting pretty loose. But you get the point. Very easy. And a table in front of it. It's so easy for me to lay out a room like this or lay out any panel like this because I'm just using the existing perspective rather than I've got a wall. Okay, now I need to find that point. Here it is, and I can draw the line for that. It's just not a practical approach, and I never see anybody describe it this way. I actually learned this from an old copy of Hero magazine years and years ago. And yeah, it made a big difference for me. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to use those same lines, and they're pretty light right now. I had to erase them again, and I'm going to draw a building on it. And so here's the side of my building. Here's the top. And the way I approach it is I'm going to draw some detail just on either side. I'm going to put a window right here. And I'm going to go just below that line into that line. And then what I'm going to do is just put another window here, just like this. Another one here. And I'm just going to try and keep my spacing pretty even. And you'll notice I don't have enough room. I do this all the time. I don't have the time to be measuring out my windows. So what I do is I just erase the side of the building and just make it fit my windows. There you go. And so now I'm going to just draw the top line of all my windows, the bottom line, a line for the center. And I do it like an assembly line. And I can just start to put in a little bit of detail, all the windows at once. So I'm not drawing a whole window and then trying to recreate it. I'm just drawing them all at once. And it makes it much easier. A little bit of detail inside there. And now drawing the side of the building is obviously very easy. I can put another building here, still using the same perspective. I can draw another one up here, maybe a chimney, whatever, and I can just rough into that same area. And obviously I'm coming off my perspective. If I wanted to do this, I would have to use a little bit more perspective, but I can get so much detail in there just in the perspective that I had already established without having to reestablish any lines. Makes it very easy. But that's the real basics of it. I wish I could sit here and show you how I do shadowing and use negative space and really go into detail. But, as a basic process, that really is it. I've got a video on 1-point perspective on my channel. I need to do 2- and 3-point perspective. I've not done it yet, but it also really breaks down that whole process.
Yeah. One question, and I actually am curious how this one relates to what you just showed as well. How do you learn composition? As in, what books or resources and practice exercises did you use to learn it? Where and how do you learn both the theory and practical application? So they kind of want to know how you learn composition. I want to know, like, when you're doing these cityscapes, like you're plotting out the perspective and stuff, how are you thinking about the composition of it all? Make that interesting.
Well, I guess the first question would be, what is it that I want to focus on? And the script will usually tell me that. So if it's a figure, if I've got a figure standing on top of a building, I'm going to draw a horizontal panel. And let's just say that's Batman. He's on top of a building. Well, I know that I kind of want to use a rule of thirds. It's a useful rule rather than just putting somebody smack in the center of the panel or way off over here. And so I'm going to divide it into thirds, basically like that. It's not mathematical, but I'm going to say I want to put him here. So I'm just going to draw him here. Here he is. And his cape is kind of coming off here. And I don't want now I've got my rule of thirds here, so it can be a little distracting. I don't want my building to just be flat because it'd be boring. I could do that, but I think it'd be much more interesting to have him on a building that you're seeing kind of at an angle like this. And so now I need to fix my figure, which is why I wouldn't actually draw the figure in quite like that. So here he is kind of in a little bit better perspective with the building. And, maybe a window here. some chimneys. And what I want to do here is I want to create an overall block that has compositionally a shape to it, and it really doesn't yet. So I think it needs just a little bit more, and I can start to just kind of play with my shapes until I get something that compositionally just feels like it completes, and I want this to be the focus, so everything's kind of come around them like this and just be a shape. And then because I've drawn something up here, I kind of want to focus down here for the rest of my detail. And so I would just draw, maybe a couple buildings in the distance here. I could maybe draw a building here kind of in the foreground. And that actually, I like that. That kind of frames the shot a little bit. But really what I'm doing is focusing on a figure and making sure that everything else is really secondary to that figure. And so that's how I would kind of plan that out if I'm focusing on something in a panel. Or, I could draw, if it was a tall panel like this, I could have something directly in the center down here. And, maybe it's an alleyway or whatever. And, the walls really close in on them. And then I could have some buildings in the background, something like that. And it's all focused on a figure. If I wanted to just be buildings, then I need to kind of make a building my figure. And so Mike Mignola does this beautifully, by the way. I really recommend looking at Gotham by Gaslight. Gotham by Gaslight is a great book to look at. So I'm going to just place a huge building element right here, and this will all be shadow. And he'll like put a couple of little windows in there just to break it up. But there you go. Just a cool compositional element right there. And then I'm going to put some other buildings kind of around it, and they're really secondary to it, just to fill out the composition. But you can see it has like a focus. You don't want to just draw random, building. You really want to think in terms of focus. Mike Mignola, highly recommend. It's pretty good.
Yeah. So did you study composition from books, or was it mostly from studying masters that like other comic artists you really like and seeing how they composed?
My first understanding of composition came from How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, the John Buscema Stan Lee book, which I think is an absolute classic. And it's very simple. You would swear that it's written for kids, the way that it looks when you look at that book, but it gives you so much information. And I found other composition books that, frankly, I couldn't understand. I was lost, I think it's a subject that's very easy to kind of delve too deeply into. And so what he did in that book is just work with simple shapes. So, triangular composition, here's your figure, and, maybe a couple surrounding figures like this, or a figure, and then there's a bunch of other figures pointing in at him, and they kind of surround him, in a bit of an arc. And he did, 4 or 5 different compositions like that, and that gave me a huge amount. Like, it was a big leg up. And I also found, and I apologize, it's Marcus Mateo Maestra, and I know I'm saying the name wrong, but he has a really great composition book that is more in depth, but also really well explained.
Marcus Mateo. I'm trying to look him up. Marcus Mateo.
And it's Mestra.
Mestra?
M-E-S-T-R-E. I might be.
Yeah. I don't know how to pronounce this, but yeah, Marcos, and then Mateu, like Mateu /MESTRE.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then it really is looking at artists that do it well. Frank Miller is incredible for that kind of, shape design, and just breaking down what they do. And it's amazing how much you can get you can take the same basic shape design and do 10 different sorts of panels with it. So, I think it can be a little bit of a challenge to look. It's like seeing the forest for the trees kind of a thing, being able to take all of those different elements you see in a complex drawing and break it down into a few simple elements. And that takes a little bit of experience, but which is why the How to Draw Comics Marvel Way was so helpful for me.
Another question: how do you break into comics in this day and age, and are comics still relevant?
First of all, I'll start with, are comics still relevant? I don't know how you could call comics irrelevant in a time when comics have dominated Hollywood,
Yeah.
video games, all over the place. I mean, Invincible is a comic for years and years, and is now an animated series, which I thought was amazing. I'm waiting for the next season of it. So yeah, they're certainly relevant. Maybe the question would be more, are they relevant as their own medium as opposed to just being like a feeder for other mediums? And they are. They absolutely are. And there's still a very strong readership out there, and actually a more diverse readership than we once had. Um, yeah, I think Image Comics is a real testament to that. It's not just superheroes; it's all kinds of comics. Much more like the European model, where there are westerns and there's space operas and there are all kinds of different things, and that's really kind of taking off here. So, yeah, I definitely think it's relevant. And as far as breaking in goes, um, going to conventions and showing your work, that's a great way. I should probably get my reference. I'm doing the face here, and I'm doing this blind. I'm gonna end up with something.
By the way, when you added the hair on me, that was a while ago. But as soon as you added the hair, I think it started looking a lot more like me, just because the dark hair, I think it makes a difference on my face. I don't know why, but as soon as you did it, I was like, oh yeah, okay, I could see it. I could see me now for sure.
And I know if I had you from exactly that angle and I just traced it, it would look exactly like you. But
yeah, I think if you showed me just the face of Marshall's, like just Marshall's face and just my face, I would be able to tell that's us. You wouldn't even have to say that's us. By showing it to me on a superhero, it definitely makes it more difficult to say like, oh, hey, that's me, just because the body like so different. But yeah, if you just showed me our faces, I would totally tell that's us. So I think you did a good job with the likenesses.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But yeah, breaking in is going to conventions, putting your work online, and putting yourself out there, Instagram, that kind of thing. And I know it's frustrating when you don't have an audience, but it is really the only way. You have to get somebody. Basically, you look at it from the perspective of somebody that's hiring. I think that's very, very helpful. What they're looking for, and what they're looking for is an artist that meets the needs of the story that they're trying to tell, first and foremost. Which is why you have to think about, is the kind of art you're doing, is it suitable for a particular sort of story, and tailor what you're doing to make it easier for you to get work. And I know Meredith, my wife, she writes comics, and she's found artists on Facebook. Actually, she's done like an open call for people to submit, and we've hired 2 different artists from Facebook that way, and done really, really well with it. So that's another avenue. Writers are always looking for someone to tell their story, and then I would say any job you get, if it's your dream job, great. Chances are it won't be your dream job. It'll be a job, but you need to treat it like gold, because they don't. Every job that you do is, you have to think about it like your resume, because anybody looking at your work, that's how they see you. You're only as good as your last job, and so if you don't do a good job on something, you're making it extraordinarily difficult for you to ever move on from that project. So I'd say any project you take on, whether you enjoy it, whether you don't, you need to put everything you have into it and treat it like gold, and it will pay off.
I've done some indie work, but I'm just starting to get offered work from bigger publishers. I found myself in a bit of a you don't know what you don't know. Any advice for things to consider as you just start to get offers from bigger publishers?
I would say, from I guess a personal responsibility standpoint for you, you want to tell them exactly what you can and can't do, and be honest about it, because you will get exposed if you lie about what you're capable of. They will find out, and they'll be very upset if you put them in a bad position in order to find out. So that's number one. And meeting deadlines is such an important thing, and being true to the script. You need to look at, read the scripts, make sure you understand not only what's being asked for in the panels, but really what the tone of the story is. It's very, very important, because really it's the writers that are deciding whether you get work or not, more than anyone else. And from a business standpoint, that's a little tougher. Truthfully, I'm a terrible businessman, so I I don't really I don't have good advice with that one. So I apologize.
Um, let's see. This one, the question is essentially, when you draw from imagination, do you already have the image in your head?
Usually, yeah. Now I really didn't this time. Um, I've done this a lot drawing comics.
Yeah.
Like a really a minor character. If I'm drawing, I don't have time to do like designs for characters, so I just kind of make it up as I go, and I have no idea what it's going to end up looking like in the end. So this happens, more than you would think. But generally, unless it's designing something like this, I have a pretty good idea what I'm going to end up with. I'm finding I'm really enjoying painting lately, but the thing that I hate about painting is I truly have no idea what it's going to look like in the end. Successful or not, it's always a total surprise because I know so little that I just can't plan for things. Whereas with drawing, I can, and you won't be able to when you're drawing. So I wouldn't look at that as any kind of a goal to aspire to because it will just happen. You will find, the more you do it, the more comfortable it becomes, just naturally. So I wouldn't worry about it really. Like understand that you're going to go into a picture and it's going to be you'll just get lost and it gets difficult. It's going to happen, and if that is happening, don't look at it as something going wrong. It's not.
Okay. Um, wow, this person's username is actually Finch Beautiful Baldy.
Well, thank you.
That's the username. I don't know. Like this must be like a super fan that's just following you. Um, okay. They're at, he or she asks, "What is your favorite body type to draw?"
Um, I would say I definitely gravitate toward drawing male superheroes more than women, or just male figures. I think that's very common with male artists. It's certainly not universal at all to say that, so I wouldn't want to suggest that. But I find a lot of men are more comfortable drawing women. A lot of women are more comfortable drawing women. And again, it's not a rule. For me, I am more comfortable drawing men, and I like drawing. I would say my most comfortable, the thing that I enjoy drawing most, would be like a Punisher sort of a character. It's a little darker, somebody that's got like a good build, not crazy like the Hulk, but that kind of a character, and where I can really play with a lot of shadow. I mean, a lot of it for me, I really enjoy drawing with shadow. So characters that don't give me that ability, or at least or minimize that ability, are more difficult for me to draw. And
Yeah.
I want to say characters that have some characters will have really odd costumes with just placements of light areas and dark areas on the costume, and that was a struggle for me for so long because it just would break my lighting.
Mm,
And I feel like I've kind of gotten a little better at that, but it still can be a real problem.
yeah. I guess another person asks, if you had a choice to draw for comic books, what? I guess I mean you do. First of all, you do have a choice, right? Like you can choose who you like, which characters you get to work on, or is it just like whatever they send you?
Uh, well, it depends on where you are in your career.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Yeah. Right.
yeah, when you're starting, you're going to take what you can get. Um, but yes, I definitely have a choice within reason. Let's say I really want to draw Fantastic Four, and that's so I say to Marvel, I want to draw Fantastic Four. That's it, and they already have
Yeah.
an artist on that book, and they're doing really great work. And fans love the book. They're not just going to say, okay, this guy needs to get off the book. So
Yeah.
it, it's not any kind of a universal thing. But yes, I do have a
Yeah.
good amount of.
Okay. Have you ever declined to work on a character because you don't like you didn't want to draw those like that character?
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, interesting. Cool. I guess you don't have to say which ones, but okay. So this person's question is: if you had a choice to draw for a comic book, what character would you like to draw? And so I guess you kind of already just answered that. But is there like one favorite comic book character that you just loved working on?
Um, yeah, I love doing Batman. I've done a lot of Batman, but I don't think I could ever get sick of it. I love drawing Moon Knight. I would have loved to have had a chance to do more. I just did a cover just last month, and I did one about a year ago. So I've gotten to draw them a bit, but I would love to be able to. There's so many things that you have to pick. It can be a really difficult thing. Is you can only do so. I can only do so much, and so I have to pick, and then I just have to be happy with that choice. Accept that choice and say, okay, well, I can't be drawing Daredevil right now because I'm drawing this, and I committed to it, and I love it. I've quit so many books. It took me a long time. I feel like I'm 49 years old now, and I'm trying to mature enough to not just go, you know what, I'm sick of this today. I just want to quit. Happens all the time. It's so easy. So I don't even know if I answered the question. Was that like a tangent?
Yeah, you said Batman.
Okay, yeah, okay, there you go. Batman.
Yeah, it was a very simple question. You gave a very, very specific, simple answer. Yeah. So, okay, this is a fun question. If you can choose one over the other when reading a comic book, best story or best art, the one that you don't choose is the worst possible. So if you choose best story, then the art is as bad as it could possibly be. And if you choose best art, then the story is as bad as it can possibly be.
I'm going to choose best art because...
Oh, wow. I was not expecting that. Wow. Okay. Awesome. Why is that?
Because at least you have good art to look at.
Okay.
But a good story with bad art can destroy a story. I mean, if it's poorly drawn, but the storytelling is good, that's one thing. But if the storytelling is bad, a story can't overcome an artist not hitting the beats that need to be hit in order for the story to be told. Mm-hmm. And I think people forget that so much of art is storytelling and getting that story across. So yeah, I would pick art just because I feel like really bad art on a story, like the worst possible, would make it unreadable anyway. So you would have nothing.
Right. Okay. I guess the best, like, I don't know what the worst possible art would even be, because it's like, if you think about, the ones I already mentioned, like Dogman and like some of the webcomics where it's just like stick figures, right? Like is that the worst possible, or the worst possible is where it's just like unreadable, you don't even know what's happening?
Yeah, that would.
It's like,
I've got kids, so I'm totally familiar with Dogman and with Captain Underpants. I even watched the movie twice in the theater, so
yeah,
I paid my dues. But that art is actually really good,
I guess, I mean, yeah, sure, okay, it is good because they totally lean into the fact that it looks like it's drawn by a child, right?
Yeah, and the characters have really good expressions. I feel like
that's true. It's not the worst possible.
Yeah.
It is very interesting to look at, I gotta say.
Yeah.
And even the ones where it's just like stick figures, the stick figures still have good gesture, and like you could totally tell what's happening. So anyway, cool. Best art. What are the most important rules to define a female and male face and their features? What are the main differences?
You know what? I don't know how to explain that at all, except to... So I'm going to draw a male face and then just turn it female. Or maybe I could do female.
Oh,
I'm going to draw...
That's a great way to show it. That's like, you don't even have to explain it. You just show it.
I'm going to actually draw a female face and turn it male.
Okay.
I think it might be... I tend to draw more lines on a male face. So I guess that would be one of the things, and I don't want to have to...
Right.
So if I draw... Let's draw a female face.
And you could just add a little bit more bulk to the female, probably.
Yeah. And it's very little. You'd be surprised just how little change you need to make. It's not like we're, alien species from each other. So I've got an eye here, an eye here. Obviously, I'll make this a little better in a second. My nose will be here. That's my basic proportions. This is like the Loomis head kind of filtered through How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way, basically. Okay.
You're still doing the female part, right?
Yeah, this is yeah. And so the first thing that I'm doing that is going to be different than the male head is I'm drawing heavier lashes. Now, obviously women don't have heavier lashes, but generally speaking, for cartooning, you draw them as if they have makeup, and this is certainly how I would approach it.
Yeah, I mean, just like with that eye that you drew, you don't even have to have anything else. It's like, oh, yep, that's a more feminine eye.
Yeah,
It
and the eye
was,
shape is really the same.
yeah, well, kind of, but I mean, the way you indicated the lines, it just like it was very clear right away.
And I mean, obviously, the ear's not going to change. Rough that in pretty quick. And so, yeah, without drawing hair, because she is bald and beautiful.
Hmm. Yeah, you don't need it. I could tell that's a female.
Yeah.
You don't need
So
that.
yeah, there's a basic, and eyes. That's a basic female face, and then to make that male, I'm just going to lighten it down. I'm erasing anyway, after all. And so I'm going to draw the same eyes. But I'm not accentuating eyelashes.
I also noticed you did a little bit more of a straight line on the top eyelid and also on the eyebrows.
Yeah, I'm probably making them look a little bit more stern, and that's really. I could draw a female face. I could just give her eyelashes, and it would still be totally female. That is more a result of me. You tend to draw kind of the same sorts of things a lot. You end up with a shorthand. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm thinking male right now, so I'm falling into my natural shorthands.
Yeah.
So I'm going to make the nose just a little bit stronger.
Also more of a straight line.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the mouth, I'm not going to accentuate. You won't see that top lip at all. So there's the bottom lip. That's going to be a little bit thinner. And then it still looks very female, doesn't it?
I could. It's definitely becoming more masculine. Oh, there you go. Now it's a guy for sure. It just became a guy. Those three lines you added.
Yeah, and just changing the jaw, I kind of screwed up there. I lost my line there.
I wonder if you kept the female face but just changed the jawline.
You're right. Actually, it really still looks female the whole time. It's like I didn't do anything. I could have just changed the jawline, and there you go.
And a little bit more on the brow ridge, maybe, and then it's like boom.
Yeah, a little more. Yeah, but there you go. That's it,
Yeah,
it's very little
because
different.
if a guy wears makeup and puts eyelashes, like the guy, it still looks like a guy.
Yep.
Like you can tell it's a female, or you can tell that he's still a male, because of more of the anatomical differences that the guy is born with.
Yeah, just a result of more
Skull.
testosterone and a heavier muscular or a heavier skeletal structure.
Yeah.
Obviously generalizations. I mean, everybody's different, but
Yeah. Okay, that was a awesome demo.
it could have been so much easier though. You're totally right. I could have just changed the jaw.
Well, I think it was important to see all the features though too. That I think
Yeah.
that's very useful. Um, let's see. Hello, David. I'm having trouble drawing two or more characters in contact with each other, like wrestling and takedowns. Also, how does one visualize those scenarios and dynamic camera angles? I feel like you're about to flip the page again and do another drawing on the side, and then we're never gonna get done with this.
Here's the problem. I have no ability to explain anything.
Yeah.
So,
Well, no, you do a great job, but yeah, you do such a good job by drawing it visually that it just makes sense for you to just like show. So, and you draw so fast. I think the issue with a lot of instructors, like with, I mean, maybe I'm just talking for myself actually. Like if you're live streaming or it's a live class, if somebody asks a question, it will take me forever to show them with a drawing that it's just like so much quicker for me to try to use my words to explain things and then like pull out a diagram or something, But you draw so fast, that it's actually just easier for you to just like show it instead of use your words.
Yeah,
So
and so much so that I just don't even I don't have the words. Um, okay, so two people fighting.
you actually did go. That's great. Okay.
So this is where gesture is so important. And so I'm going to say I've got one person knocking another person backward and like grabbing onto them. And so I could show that. And I'm going to do it two different ways. And now I could show that directly from above, or I could show it from anywhere. But I think I tend to like kind of a 45-degree angle because then it comes out toward the camera or away from the camera. It's a little more dynamic, I feel like. Okay, so I'm going to draw. Here's my guy flying backward. I'll draw him first. So there he is.
I love your little gesture mannequin style, by the way. Like you give them like bulkier forearms, bulkier calves. I love that look.
Thank you.
It makes them look so much more dynamic and like superhero while still being more of a wireframe.
Well, yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Kind of made a mess of that leg though. Okay, anyway, so there he is. One leg's kind of messed up, but we don't have all day. And so now I want to draw the other guy, and he's barreling into him. So the number one thing, of course, is they're going to be a similar size. So I'm going to draw his head. I'm going to draw it here, like he's underneath. And so there it is. Here's his body, and I've got his arm. You can't see it. Comes around here, and then it's going to be grabbing around the guy here. And so let's just erase out where you can't see it. And there you go. There's his body. Now his other arm, I'm going to put around this way. Just like this. And I'm going to draw his body coming out this way. And he's barreling into this guy and kind of knocking him back this way. And that's how I approach it. I draw the figure, first of all, I draw the most important figure first. And then I draw the figure that's behind or the less important figure. So now I'm going to do this the other way. And so I've got this figure. I'm going to start with him. And this is, again, but it really is why gesture drawing is so incredibly important, because you will not be able to plan these kinds of panels if you can't do it. So here he is. He's not drawing the best. As the time wears on, these get worse. Okay, and so now I've got this guy here, and he's going to be basically like this. I'm still here. And so I've got this guy's arms on him. And he had one leg that kind of wrapped out like this. And then the other leg was kind of here. And I mean, this is a terrible, simple drawing, but it just gets the idea across. And you can see how easy it is to approach something like this if you just draw really, really simple figures like this. And I highly recommend that you just go through comics, that you'll find a million panels like this and just try and gesture draw them out. You'll get a lot out of it. So that's the same panel. I just flipped it. So in one, you see the guy from behind being hit. The other one, you see the guy forward. And, you know, from a storytelling perspective, whichever character you feel like is more important, you can choose that angle. Generally speaking, the script won't specify.
Yeah, and you know what was really interesting watching that is that you didn't really care too much about like the shape of the foot that you put in. You just kind of like threw in like a little curvy shape.
Yeah.
You were completely focused on the gesture and the pose.
Right, and once that's in, then I can actually go in and make that a foot.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that that's kind of what some people struggle with, is removing that tendency to try to like draw body parts.
Yeah.
And focusing on the pose. And the pose really doesn't need to have body parts in it. It just needs to have shapes that represent action. right? And it's so difficult. Even like for me, I've been doing gesture drawings for like almost 20 years now, and like I still I have to remind myself, okay, no, gesture, like stop thinking about body parts. And maybe it's because I study anatomy so much that it's like in my brain to think about body parts. But I do also notice it with students, that it's just a tendency to think of parts.
Yeah, I think it's a difficult thing to let go of. Um, Maybe it's helpful to know that you're only letting go of it just for part of the stage, and you can establish that all back in there.
Yeah.
But it's so much easier to like if you have two blocks and you want them to be the exact same size, to draw the outline of the box and make them the same size, rather than to try and start with a little scribble. It's like the worst example. Sometimes I don't know what that even meant.
Maybe you meant like instead of trying to figure out, sure the perspective of the box is correct, you just get
Sure,
the
yeah, like
rough
something
shape
that's
of it.
more detailed is much more difficult to size,
Yeah.
and that's all I mean. Yeah, I'll just draw
Yeah.
my picture.
Nice. Um, let's see. I'll ask a few questions that won't require you to draw for a little bit, so you can focus on this picture. How do you budget your time to meet your deadlines?
Um, well, I draw most of the day. I've got kids. It can be a little bit difficult. My wife just got horses. She's had horses for a while.
Ooh,
We have them at the house now, though. So
in
life,
the house.
well, not in the house, but you know, outside. And
Yeah. Wow.
she promised me. I knew that it was baloney from the start. She said, "Oh, you won't have to do anything. That's fine. I'll do it." And yeah, I'm watering those horses every day. And so, I have responsibilities, and life gets in the way. But I know that it takes me. I've got a cover that I need to finish for Friday, and so what? It's Wednesday right now. Um, it's going to take me 2 days, so I've got tomorrow and Friday, and I actually planned that into my time. I spent the earlier part of my week working on some other things that I was already behind on, and so tomorrow and Friday, that's going to be what I do, and I'll be able to turn it in then. And so I wake up in the morning, have coffee, spend some time before the kids start school. They're learning at home right now. And then I just go down and I work until 4 o'clock. And I come upstairs and spend time with the family, have dinner, and I pretty much hang out until about 8 o'clock or so. And then I just go back downstairs and work, and I usually finish around 1:30 or 2. So that's usually my day. And it's a huge commitment. I draw, you know, all the time, but I don't have a real job either. So it's a trade off.
Oh, come on. It's a real job.
It is a real job.
Or it's a real career, actually. Maybe not a
Yeah.
job, but yeah. Um, well, thank you for taking the time to do the stream. You got these hard deadlines, but you're here. Thank you.
Oh yeah, well, my pleasure. And really, I guess part of scheduling is I knew that we were doing this for about a week. I knew when we were doing it, so
Yeah.
it's very easy for me to just block that out. So
And about the horse thing, maybe that's a way for life to just like force you to get out of your chair and work out a little bit in some kind of way, move around. Because you were saying that you've been trying to exercise
yeah.
more. Maybe that's a good way for you to like move around. It's just like, hey,
Actually,
water the horses.
it really has been. And she's putting up a fence all around the outside of the place, and so we're getting telephone poles that are cut. Somebody got it. We got them cheap, right? And so every morning, because there are a ton of them, I'm taking the pickup truck and loading the back of it with as many poles as I can get in there without crushing the truck, because it's not it's not massive. And then having to hike them to the house. Anyway, every morning I'm doing this a little bit at a time, and yeah, it's a workout. So you know what? It's been good for me.
Some put in the dialogue bubble first, then draw the letters. What's your opinion on that?
I don't do that because the dialogue box doesn't It used to be dialogue boxes where actually like you would turn in the pages, the original art, and then the dialogue would be pasted directly onto the actual original art. That isn't done anymore. And what I make sure to do is I'll read a panel, and generally like a writer will give me all the dialogue so I know exactly what people are thinking and saying. All I need to know is if they're happy or sad or whatever. Just a simple expression, truthfully. I almost feel like I should admit that I don't care about all of the words. I just want to, just basics. But the other thing that I need to know is just how much they're saying. And then it's pretty easy for me to say, okay, this is a whole monologue. And so I'll draw, here's my panel, and I'll draw a little head down here. You know what I mean? That's pretty rare, but it can happen. So yeah, I try to be aware of that and leave a little bit of room. That's all you really need to do. You don't need to actually draw and drawing in the word balloons is, I think it's counterproductive too, because since those word balloons have to be then put on by somebody else, if you don't draw backgrounds and you don't draw through where that word balloon would be, you're now kind of confining and constricting where they can put a word balloon. Nobody likes that.
So do you don't want to think about how that word balloon affects the composition?
I do, yeah.
But you just leave space for it where you think it would make sense, and then
right.
It really...
Yeah, I leave space where it would make sense. I know that you can get much more creative with your panel composition around word balloons. I don't. So, but I think it's a valuable thing. I don't do it. So
okay. Yeah. Let's see. Who's the favorite writer that you've worked with?
I've worked with a few. I've worked with my wife Meredith. She wrote Wonder Woman while I was drawing it. That was a great time. And if I don't say that, I get in trouble around here.
You're gonna get in trouble for saying that you have to say it.
I know.
Oh man.
I got to work with Grant Morrison, who I'm a huge fan of. I worked with Jeff Loeb, who he wrote Batman, Long Halloween, and Dark Victory, and a lot of stuff that's some of my favorites. So it was a blast to be able to work with him. It's a long list. Jeff Johns, who is the DC's, or I guess Warner Brothers creative director. He was in charge of the movies for quite a while there. Brian Bendis, who really kind of filled a lot of that role for Marvel. He was very heavily involved creatively. He's the creator of Miles Morales. So yeah, a lot of incredible writers. Bendis was an artist too. He started his career doing indie comics. He did all the art. And so I learned so much from him in terms of storytelling. And he actually, when we started, he didn't trust me much. I shouldn't say this. He was great to work with, but he didn't trust me much. And he was actually giving me little layouts for certain panel. Like if he had a really complex idea that he wanted to get across, he would just give me the layout and say, just do this. So I tend to pick up things like that pretty quickly. And so, yeah, after a few of those times, I really had a real sense of what he was looking for with those kinds of shots. And it, added to what I was able to do. So I was more than happy to get those layouts from him. I learned quite a bit.
Okay, so this one is about like studying style. So it's a bit of a long one, but when doing master studies of a comic book artist's work, what should you be looking out for when you're trying to break down their work in order to understand the rules of their style? Are there certain kinds of covers or panels that you should seek out in particular to redraw? In my particular case, I want to do some master studies of Trad Moore, and his work is unique compared to other industry artists, so I'm not exactly sure where to start.
It's a really well-written question. I think it's very thoughtful. I hope I have an answer that's somewhat helpful. I think, I know for me, my biggest influence is I knew what I really liked about, each artist. And so I really focused on those things. And I'm sure with Trad Moore, what you like. Like, does he draw faces that you really like? Well, I would say, you don't need to worry about, don't overthink what he does or any artist that you're looking at does, just look at the surface elements of what they do. And, I wouldn't look at it as any kind of a deep dive into research. You just really want to pick up the basic building blocks from a drawing perspective of what they do. And you do that just by drawing it, and you'll internalize it, and you'll develop your own aesthetic very, very quickly just by the artist that you choose. So if you take Trad Moore and you really get a good sense of, some of the things that he does that you really like, you're able to reproduce those. You don't need to be Trad Moore, and you don't want to be. So you just want to be able to do some of those things and then find a different artist and do the same thing, and a different one and do the same thing. And your own aesthetic will, if you don't just stick with one artist. I think it's such a big mistake to say, okay, I'm going to draw like this artist and let that be your only influence. And then you really will just be a shallow copy of who you're looking at. You want to look at a few different sources, and it will turn into its own thing very quickly, and you'll develop really your own aesthetic just kind of naturally. I found for me, I was really worried about that early on. How am I going to get a style? Because I was just copying works of Estrie, and I just didn't know how to go about that. And I finally found it's not something I needed to worry about. I just needed to try and copy all my favorite artists as well as I could. I had the advantage of not being able to do it well. So where I would fall flat, it would be my own style, quote unquote.
I'm really enjoying watching you do this skull and designing the shapes around the pants and stuff. It's cool.
Yeah.
I like skulls.
Yeah. Scully. Yeah, I actually wish I wouldn't have crossed his arms now. I could have went and got proper reference for Scully.
Yeah, but you could tell that's Skelly over there in the back, or not just you could tell it's a skull, and then
I'm calling him Scully. Skelly.
It's all right. And then you got enough skills. I'm calling them skills. We're opposites here. There's enough skulls on there that it's pretty obvious that he's just, he's got skulls on him. That's really cool, though. I love it.
So I'm going to use my big speed trick. This is the only one I have. Side of the pencil.
Speed trick, yeah.
If I had any sense, I would have a softer pencil to do this stuff. And by the way, if anybody's interested, nobody's asked, but I'm going to say it anyway. This is just a Staedtler drafting pencil. It's cheap. You can get it anywhere. And I use 2H lead. And the paper...
2H?
Yeah, 2H. So it's a pretty hard lead.
This whole time it was 2H?
Yep.
Wow.
And I use a Bristol board. It's just 200 series Strathmore. Again, fairly cheap, but this stuff really takes ink well, so... That's it. And it's the only pencil I really ever use. It's just a 2H lead. I find HB is too soft for a lot of the kind of detail that I'm doing.
Okay. One person did ask, why do you have tape on your pencil?
Oh, my hand just gets tired. I tend to press way too hard with a pencil. I don't have tape on any of my inking tools just because I don't press as hard with them. They're more pressure sensitive. But I've broken my pencil tip once while we were doing this. I had to actually take it out and put it in a little bit, and well, you'll see it's broken out, and that's just me pressing too hard. So that can be very tiring on the hand.
Are you pressing harder because it's a 2H?
Probably yes. Actually, guaranteed, yeah.
Yeah.
But I can get the kind of tight detail that I want, and I struggle to do it otherwise.
Yeah. Okay. And the tape, it just helps you grip the pencil better without like gripping a really skinny pencil.
Yeah, I find I get a lot less hand fatigue and cramping with tape on there. And so it's not the prettiest. It's just masking tape, Yeah. But it does the job. And I'm so used to, not drawing where people are watching. I'm not thinking about the fact that I've got ugly masking tape on my pencil.
Yeah, I mean, it's why a stylus, like a Cintiq stylus on Wacom, like that's why they have a little thicker bottom where you hold it.
Right.
A little bit curved. So
you would think just right out of the factory they would make these with a bit of an ergonomic shape,
Wow, more supplies, more material.
Sure. I don't know. Maybe it's a business right there.
Maybe. Yeah. Or you could just put tape.
Or you could put tape, yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a pencil you could buy for $30, or you could,
You could put tape on it, yeah. Let's see. Do you have any recommendations for improving storytelling intuition for laying out pages from a script breakdown? I come from painting and I tend to create more still compositions, but I am being pulled towards sequential art lately. Also, Finch flock forever.
Well, thank you for that. You know, I keep saying how to draw comics the Marvel way, but it is a really, really helpful thing because it's done in a pretty simple way. And I I think that drawing tightly or being too precious with what you're drawing is a huge problem when it comes to laying out pages. And so if you can lay out your pages, obviously you'll need to tighten these up, but if you can do figures like this, then you can really lay out a page. And I'll just draw a tiny, tiny little page. I'm not even going to zoom in because it's not important. So I'm going to start with a close-up. And so maybe I'll do it on a big, long, tall panel. And so there you go. There's my close-up. That's all I need. And so it's got a lot of energy. And then on a panel here, I'll draw, I don't know, what do you think? Any ideas?
A ball of some kind.
A ball?
Wait, where? I was reading a question. Sorry.
Oh, okay, all right. So I'm thinking, okay,
flying at the face.
Oh, there you go. Okay, and
That's
so
what I meant, like
okay.
like a baseball or something.
And so I want to see the ball coming toward. I never. What I don't want to do, almost never, unless I have a really specific reason, is here's the figure and here's the ball coming toward his face. Like that's terrible. So I'm going to draw him. Here he is. He's like, oh no, and his hands are up, and here's the ball, and it's coming toward him. And then I'm going to do like speed lines all through the panel, and there you go. That's my ball coming toward my face. And then on my next panel, I want to see, here he is, his head's being knocked back. And again, these are like the worst drawings, but I'm just kind of doing placement. And he's got a little spit coming out of his mouth as the ball smacks him in the face here. And maybe I won't even see the ball, but I'll just see the impact. Bing. And, so that's all you need to lay out pages. And if you keep it really simple like that, you'll find it very, very approachable. And it's so easy to structure detail on top of, obviously you need to structure on top of that.
Yeah.
All right. I need to draw all of I should have been doing all those little gesture drawings here. I wouldn't be doing this now.
Oh yeah. The people fighting, but they wouldn't be fighting each other though, huh? It's an army attacking other people. So is this, these are gesture drawings coming out of my essence or?
Right.
Oh no, it's coming out of my hand. Okay, I see it.
Yeah, it's coming
going backward towards. Okay, I see.
Well, I'll have some come out toward us too. I just want them.
Ah, got it. Yeah, there's just more room to show them up there. That's awesome. Oh man. Oh, it's off the screen. We can't see what you're doing.
Oh, okay. There we go.
There you go.
And since these are gesture drawings, I don't even have to make them nice.
Nice, you mean no detail, but the gesture has to be nice, right? Like,
yeah, right. Yeah, the gesture has to be nice. I don't know if I'm going to pull that off for everyone, but.
This is so cool. I'm so happy. One person asks, do you have a favorite special effect like Kirby Crackle?
You know what? Kirby Crackle is hard for me to do. For whatever reason, it's the easiest thing to do, but I have a hard time getting it to really look great. I would say special effect.
Is there like a David Dimple or like a David Detail?
Yeah, there's a David Detail. Yeah, no.
David Detail.
I would say my favorite special effect would be to do I like doing kind of a messy grad from, okay, I'm going to do this one too, but so it kind of starts like this. And I'll make it pretty small. And then I like to do a bit of a break, and then I'll go up again. And then it gets a little thinner
Ah.
and a little bit more spaced out. And then I can just go across it and do the same thing. And it just gets a little thinner and more spaced out. And done well over a surface, it has a really nice texture to it. I learned it from inkers like Scott Williams, who it looks not the best, but it can look better. And that's probably my favorite.
And so, wait, is that to like create a gradation of value?
Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Now, so I guess it's not really a, I don't know, special effect.
Well, it's a technique to show a gradation, I guess.
Yeah, well, you know,
Oh,
what I
can't
thought
see
of in a
the
minute
gestures.
anyway.
It's off screen again.
Oh, okay, there we go.
Okay, thank you. Your special effect is David drawing. You do drawings, and they're awesome.
Thank you.
Oh man, I like the one that's coming out like flying like Superman.
Oh yeah,
That's,
yeah. It's a little bit more, you know, like he's gonna do something.
yeah. Okay, let's see. Let's get another question in here. Ooh. Oh man, I don't want to ask this one because you're gonna draw it. I'll save it until after you're done with these gestures here. Do you think for this live session? Oh no, thank you for this live session. Question for David: what do you dislike about the art world? Ooh.
You know, there's not the kind of job security you get in some other places, and I know that a lot of jobs don't have a lot of security now, but there's no pension. If you're a teacher, you can get a pension, and that can be a very nice thing to have. And you won't have that as a pension, or you won't have a pension to rely on when you're older, and so you have to plan for that. And a lot of people don't. And I've seen a lot of artists as they get older really struggle. So that's a negative. It's an avoidable negative, but it's a trap that so many people fall in. So there's that one. Deadlines can be very, very difficult, especially if for creative people that are not really the most schedule aware. You can really put yourself in a very uncomfortable position quickly with deadlines. What else?
Mine is health. It's not healthy. It's not a very healthy thing to be like you're just sitting all the time.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Now you're pretty active though, I think.
Well, I mean, I walk a lot and I swim several days a week, but before, no, I would sit all the time for like 10 hours straight, just sitting. I would get up to use the bathroom, but I'd mostly be sitting. And I actually started to get back issues. I had to see chiropractors, and there were times when I would hurt my back so bad that I couldn't get out of bed. I had to crawl to the bathroom.
Oh wow.
And so, yeah, now I make sure I walk around. But yeah, I mean, my doctors would tell me like, yeah, it's because you sit all day. Like your muscles are too tight. They're weak. Core muscles are weak.
I generally work on the couch. I don't actually work at a desk because I don't really get so much pain yet, but I definitely get discomfort, and I just find I'm more comfortable with a lap board, kind of laying back. And I should be exercising more. I've gone through times I'm better, but it's tough, and yeah, I'm always behind at all times. And I guess that would be another thing about being an artist. Is, by the way, I'm trying to draw
Distorted perspective.
distorted perspective.
That's great.
Right. I never have time that doesn't belong to something else. So, you know, if I've got an hour, I'm also behind on something. And any time that I ever take for myself, there's work that I could be doing at that moment. It's not like a 9 to 5 job where I can just kind of walk away from it and enjoy my free time. And I do. I mean, it's not like I work every minute of the day, but it can be difficult to let go.
Yeah. Another benefit to you using a 2H is that it seems to not smear smudge at all as your hand goes over it. Or are you not putting your hand on?
Oh no, I am.
You
And
are. Yeah.
if there are times I can put a piece of paper on if it starts to smudge a little bit, and that can happen. Generally speaking, though, yeah, with this paper, it seems pretty good at taking the pencil, and 2H is hard enough that it's not really an issue.
Yeah, and with HB, and especially once you get into the Bs, your paper would just be dark at this point because
Right. And
drawing
now
around the face so much.
I'm only ever doing just pure black and white, and I'm going to do some rendering just right about now, actually. But because I'm never doing tonal shifts with just tone, I don't really need a softer lead that makes that easier.
Yeah. Cool. Oh, by the way, we're at 2.5 hours into this, so.
Okay, I'm thinking I should be able to get this wrapped up in just about 15 minutes.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. Okay. Let's see. Does Dave have a oh, that we answered that one. We answered that one. I feel like you already answered this, but I'm going to ask anyway. Do you have any tips for connecting with the writer of a comic and making the art of the story fit better with the storyline the author has in mind? Also, what's your favorite drawing exercise? So, 2 questions.
Well, in terms of making the art fit better with the story that the writer has in mind, my number one tip would be to read the entire script before you draw a page and really get a sense of exactly what the story is and what it's about. And then when you draw the page, you can draw it with a lot more context. And maybe it'd be helpful to read some more work from that writer. But definitely the worst thing you can do is to just go in and draw a page and have no idea, what the overall tone of the story and what the point of the story is, because it'll help you decide on what to focus on in each panel. If a character is much more important, when you read just one page, you're not necessarily going to know that character is the focal point of the story. So things like that. Otherwise, I think it's pretty simple. You really want to make sure, and this is a universal thing, not with any given writer, and something that I talked about in the course quite a bit is there are always elements in each panel. It can be an expression, or it can be a hand holding an item or whatever. And those things are what the panel needs to focus on. If not the focus of the panel, it needs to be a focus of the panel. It needs to be clear, and not taking those things into account and putting them in places where it's not clear for readers is a major mistake, and it can really harm the story. So, being aware of that is very important.
And then what's your favorite drawing exercise?
My favorite drawing exercise is for me to it's spending about a half an hour before I start drawing, just doing some gestures from different artists that I like, just giving it a try. It's like taking a car out for a test drive. I love Disney, all the early Disney stuff. There are whole pages of Disney hands, and they're so different than what I do. But just going through and spending a little bit of time before I start drawing and trying out some of those hands, I find that some of that kind of sticks with me, and it'll fade again in time. But the more you do that, you get a lot out of it, and I just really enjoy it. Especially artists. I'm really into Claire Wendling. I don't know if any of you that are watching are familiar with her work, but she's an incredible artist. She does like a Disney style. She also does a really Frazetta kind of style. She's got so much range, and her figures are very dynamic. And I just find they just naturally flow for me when I'm drawing from them. I really like them, and I've gotten a lot from it over the years. And she's the kind of artist I don't need to look at directly to really be influenced by, because I get so much just from sketching from her work. And she draws incredible animals too.
Here's the question that I was going to ask you that might require you to draw something.
All right.
Can you tell us how to draw wounds?
Okay, yeah, you're right. I'm gonna have to draw it. All right.
Yeah, of course, of course. How do you explain that?
Okay, so you know what? Let's do it on this face right here.
Okay.
And so I'm gonna give him a big gash, right out, like that's probably a little too big. Let's not get too carried away. I'm gonna give him a gash right here. And so that's obviously an opening. So the skin sits over, like this would be underneath and this would be over top. It's an opening in the skin. So I'm going to use a little bit of line weight here on the top portion. And then this would be the bottom kind of opening of the wound. What I'm going to do is give it a bit of a lip just by putting some line weight under this, just like this. And then I can kind of go in here and just kind of knock in a little bit of detail, kind of like this. And yeah, that'll pretty much do it. Now, I also could
That's a big wound.
Yeah, it's pretty big, but it was a small head. I wanted it to be kind of visible.
Yeah.
I could, draw some blood from it, and blood works the same way. I'm gonna
blood.
Heavier underneath where it turns away from the light. Same kind of a deal. So there you go. That's basically how I would do it. And any kind of a wound really works essentially the same way. I mean, you can make it deeper. If it is deeper, then the shadow just goes further in. So
nice.
Obviously, it's a little quick, but I would feel a little strange doing a full wound tutorial.
Yeah, no.
Like, whoa.
Yeah, I think the best way is to just like look at other comic artists and just look for wounds in their drawings and try to pick up patterns, right?
Yes. Well, an artist I would really recommend for it is Ryan Otley, who did Invincible for years and years, because he can draw some pretty ghastly stuff, and he's a great realistic artist, but he's very cartoony also, and his really graphic, violent kind of work is actually, it's not awful, believe it or not, just because his style just kind of works for it, so it doesn't look really off-putting, whereas it's something that really can be. And I personally am not a big fan of comic art with eyeballs popping out and things like that. Generally, if I draw something really violent, I'll do it in silhouette. It's just not the kind of, I like the visceral kind of violence in a comic. What I don't like is something that's
Walking Dead violence.
Hey, I like The Walking Dead though,
Yeah, yeah, but that's like the other extreme. It's not a silhouette. It's like
it's not a silhouette.
Everything.
And I kind of I lean away from that.
Yeah. I was wondering if you could give me some advice on drawing clothes. And oh, geez, you're gonna go to another sheet, huh? Making them realistic enough for comic. How do you add that much detail in a short amount of time?
Okay, well, this one I'm just going to recommend that you go to my YouTube video on drawing clothing.
Awesome.
So
what is that called? How to draw clothing?
How to draw? Yeah, I think.
I could look it up real quick.
And I'd like to do more with that, but it's got quite a bit in there.
How to draw clothing and folds.
Hey, there you go. Yeah,
David Finch. Yep.
It's nice when it's a question where I've done it, so I can just say.
Yeah. Yeah, that looks really cool. I love the thumbnail. I haven't seen that video, but the thumbnail looks very useful. You got a tight shirt where like the wrinkles are pretty tight around the body, and then another one where it's more loose suit.
Yeah.
And how the folds will kind of bundle up a little more.
Yeah, and it's a bit of a different thing, I think, with that video, just because I could have used photo reference and it would look more correct. But drawing a whole comic using photo reference for folds is, I don't know how you would do it. So you kind of need a shorthand. And so that's what I was trying to work on with that video.
Yeah. I feel like for comic book artists, understanding how folds work and being able to quickly invent them would probably be much more practical.
Yeah, it's being, the universal skills that I don't see often enough and that people need to be working on more. The top two are ears. Number one, ears. You can't draw a face that looks good. I don't care if the ear looks like a little donut. it ruins the whole face, and it's an easy thing like to fix. And I would definitely look at the way that you're doing them and work on it. I don't mean that as a call out to anyone. Don't take it the wrong way. I just mean in general, I think it's something that I see quite a bit. And the other one is folds clothing.
Mm-hmm. Nice. Do you have a specific approach to organizing values?
I do actually. I tend to like the layer with my shadows, and so I knew that I wanted this to be dark here, this whole area in this figure, and I didn't want this figure to fall into it. And so I did a bit of a rim light all through here just to separate it out. And I made that choice because I knew this would be dark. If it wasn't going to be dark, I could have just went completely shadowed with him here. And also I've got his arm goes to shadow here, and then I've used that same rim light and a shadow underneath it to kind of pop his arm out so it doesn't just flatten in. And so I like to layer with light and dark. So I'll have a light layer and then a dark layer and then a light layer, and you can just go infinitely back, and it gives you quite a bit of depth that way. So that's always a strategy that I use quite a bit.
That rim light also makes sense because it's right next to the energy field coming out of my hand. So.
Yeah. Now it probably, the hand's kind of forward. It might be further, but you know what? It makes enough sense. Yeah. It's a comic book. It only needs to make enough sense.
Yeah. It's probably more important that it looks good than be accurate.
Right? Yeah. It's like this would date me, that's for sure. But there used to be Saturday Night Live with Billy Crystal, and he said it's better to look good than to feel good.
Yeah. Nice. Let's see. How long can a page with high detail characters like these take you to draw? And to add on to that, how long for a whole comic?
Now, these characters are actually not really what the big time consumption for me, truthfully. What will make this more difficult is now I have to draw a whole city behind them, or a crowd of people, that kind of thing. That's where time really goes out of control. And so I kind of budget my day. I look at the script, so I have a good idea of just how much time it's going to take. A more simple page will take me probably 4 to 5 hours. And I mean a very simple page. An average page, I'm looking at more like 8 hours. And then a really extensive extreme page, I really, really try to not let it take more than a day because I don't have time if I'm working on a monthly book, because it starts to impact other days. Like I'll need to catch that time up later.
What's a day? How many hours is that?
A day, well, I like a day to be 8 to 9 hours, ideally.
Okay.
If I can help it, because it means I can actually, kind of unwind a little bit too. A more difficult page would be more like 10 hours, and they can be 12. And there are days that I just know this is what I'm doing today, and it's a sacrifice, and I love my job, so I'm doing it. And that'll be the page where you'll have a scene in Times Square, and I need to show all of Times Square. And you know how many times I've drawn Times Square over the years? It's ridiculous. Writers just throw that in there.
Like, I hate David.
Yeah.
Here's Times Square.
Times Square. Now what?
Here's Tokyo.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And what about a whole comic? I guess that was the other part.
A whole comic takes 4 weeks. Now, if you do 6 pages a week, which you need to be able to do a monthly book, to do every issue of a monthly book, which is rare anyway. And most people are really not that fast. So, but just, as a baseline, to do a monthly book, it takes doing 6 pages a week, 3 weeks, just over 3 weeks. You will lose time, and that gives you the time when you have to draw Times Square to be able to lose a day. Or, your mother comes over and, unexpected, those kinds of things are going to happen. So you need a little extra time.
Or your wife gets horses.
Or, yeah, right. Yeah. And so, basically 4 weeks is the time that you get to do a monthly book. And you don't always, I was talking earlier about what can happen if you are a fast but only competent artist. You can start to get deadline jobs, and you can get as little as a week and a half or a week. Like, it can just get impossible, and that can be your career. I mean, I've seen it happen. So yeah, generally though, you're much better to angle toward quality than speed, and just be honest about how long it takes. And people are good with that. I've talked to so many writers, publishers, small publishers that hire somebody just, kind of off the street, give them a chance because their work looks good. And the frustration from a writer or publisher perspective is always, this person starts out, the job is harder than they expected. And believe me, it will be. You'll be surprised. It's a hard job. It gets easier, but if you're not experienced, it will beat you. And they just quit. And next thing you know, you've got 5-6 pages drawn by this guy. And I've talked to people that pay for the whole book foolishly, but they did. And the person just disappears. So if you're not that person and you're not going to do that, honestly, this is a great career because it's very, very rewarding for people that are willing to put in the work, are accountable, and are professional. And there's just a huge need for that. As much as it's difficult to break in, there are people looking for people that they can count on to do a good job. And once they find you, they will never let you go.
Samvith Kiran has 3 questions. The first one I think you answered is, how does one get a job as a comic book artist in Marvel or DC? Like, do you intern? Which you said no.
No,
anymore.
you can't intern. Truthfully, now getting a job at Marvel or DC, it works differently for different people too. Like people from Brazil, the general way to get in, there are a few agents that rep people that are very good and that we've worked with looking for artists, and actually it's really worked out for us. And they put your work into, if they accept your work, they put it into a portfolio and present it to the publisher, and the publisher picks from that. And the art agent really kind of gives a bit of a guarantee that the artist will meet the deadline, because this is always such a concern. And if they don't, then the art agent will find a way to rectify it. So that's a bit of a, guarantee for the publisher that they really like. That's a way. There are a few all over the place that do that. And, pursuing somebody like that can be good. Now, the difficulty with that is, as much as publishers are looking for people with a particular already kind of published style, Ivan Rice is a very popular style. Art agents are very selective. They look for people. They're not looking for originality unless you're established. But, for people that they want to present to a publisher, they want it to be as easy as possible. And the easiest route is to do the kind of work that publishers already know will sell. So.
Interesting. Well, I guess this is kind of related, but in an opposite way, kind of. How do I make my artwork stand out if I was to be a comic book artist like yourself? How should I separate my style so that it doesn't feel like just another comic book in the stands? I see a lot of artwork in up-and-coming artists, and I don't know if my art will be unique. And as a 17-year-old, thinking of my career aspects and future, it feels very dejecting. But I always hope that one day when I do become an artist, that my work will be unique and inspires kids to draw.
Yeah, I think it's a really good question, and it's a really valid concern. I am going to say again, though, the number one and most important thing when you're young and you want to get in is getting in and becoming a professional and starting to establish yourself and going through all of that stuff. And so being unique, it could come to your detriment. And I hate to.
Yeah.
That's interesting. It is true, because publishers, editors, writers also are looking for people that they can go, okay, this is this kind of style. They understand it. And they can pretty much estimate how it's going to do in the market. Something that's really different, it's tougher to estimate. Publishers don't like that generally. When you get a little bit established, let's say, you're doing a style, you're working in an Ivan Rice style, for instance, or as close to that as you can get. And all of a sudden you get into, I really like Claire Wendling. Maybe you like, just as an example, you start looking at that and you mesh those two together, you already have a style that nobody else has, because I don't know an artist that does quite that. Now, you have to make your own choices, obviously, but just allow yourself to let your influences bring you to a new place. But I think starting out, yeah, being worried about being really individual from the start, it could be detrimental. I mean, it could work, and it's not for me to say, but it could make breaking in much more difficult.
Yeah.
And
Do you feel like artists could break in with, with a standard style, and then do you think it's actually possible to shift and kind of do your own thing over time?
it is for
Or
sure.
can you get stuck?
Getting stuck is entirely a result of, I get a script and I only have so much time in the month and I want to be able to sleep. And so I put all of my time into just drawing those pages. And I'm not even worried about, I've got a million comics and different influences. And I love how, for instance, Gary Frank draws faces. He's very, very good at it. And I'd love to look through and go, oh, I'll pick this up and try that. But I don't have time for that. And really quickly, you'll find yourself getting stuck. You need to take the time to bring in those influences, have a lot of things at your desk and just be trying things. And, if you have an artist that really, in some ways I feel like, and I don't want to say this, especially because I'm just as guilty. There's almost no excuse for doing something. If you really like how artist A draws hair, you shouldn't let them just have it. Take it from them. You can do it, learn how to do it and try it a few times and make it your own. And then it will become part of what you do. And you will then be a better artist and do that all the time with everything. It makes a world of difference. And you will have a style that, hopefully will inspire people. And I think really can. And also can be very commercially viable as long as you, and okay, that's a whole other factor. I have always made sure to try to make decisions with my artwork that are going to, number one, meet my own aesthetic and make me happy drawing. And number two, work for fans, because this is an entertainment industry. I'm trying to entertain with my work, and it's really forefront in my mind that I don't want to be doing the kind of thing that's going to make it unapproachable or less appealing to viewers. So it's a factor, and this is a business. So, but because it's art, I could be reluctant to say, hey, I try to make decisions that are going to make my work saleable. I do.
Yeah. This is still the same person. How long does a comic book artist draw for a company such as Marvel or DC? Does drawing comic book characters for decades not feel repetitive? Like, is there something other than drawing or writing comics that you wish to do?
No.
Great.
I love painting, but with painting, I would like to paint comic characters. This is what I love.
Right.
I'm really doing not only what I love to do, but truthfully, the only thing that I can do remotely well. I was not able to finish high school. So, I don't have a range of skills. Let me put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think I've run out of questions.
Well,
I know I skipped over a few, but yeah, you want to just like talk about the drawing now and conclude it, I guess. Are you done?
I'm done.
Oh, yeah. You're done. Okay, great. Perfect timing.
Worked out great.
Questions ran out at the same time.
Yeah, my live streams always go this way too. There's a whole bunch of questions, and then eventually people are like, okay, I'm done. Yeah, so we have you as Proko Man.
Proko Man. Okay, I was gonna ask you what the official name is. Proko Man. Okay, not Gesture Man. But yeah, I mean, I guess you put the P. So
right.
That's gotta start. You gotta start with a P.
But
yeah.
Proko Man with gestures, and then there's Marshall. He doesn't have a name though.
Well, he's got a skull on his. But I mean, his power is perspective. Skull's perspective. Distortion. Something distort. Mr. Distort.
There you go. Let's just go with that.
Mr. Distort?
Yeah, that's not bad. It's pretty good.
Kind of a tongue twister, which Marshall loves. Mr. Distort.
All right.
Awesome. Proko Man. Okay.
like Pokemon.
Yeah, it sounds like Pokemon. Or Pokemon. That I love Poke. Proko Man, okay.
And
I'm glad you didn't go with Proko Boy.
okay, yeah.
No, you go with Proko Boy. No,
Yeah,
don't
no.
do that. Don't do that.
No.
Proko Boy. Yeah, this is amazing. So
I
is
can't
that
spell distortion.
distort,
Tion, right?
Mr. Or distortion or distort, Mr. Distort?
Oh, that's right, Mr. Distort. Okay, right.
Yeah,
Look at that. I forgot already.
Mr.
Okay.
Distort. Yeah.
I'm not really much of a letterer.
It's okay. You said you don't like it in the beginning of the stream, so.
Yeah, see, there you go. That's why. If I could do it well, I wouldn't have dumped on it. I just don't like things I can't do.
Nice. Oh man, that's so awesome.
Thank you.
I
That
love
was a
it. I
lot of
love it.
fun.
Yeah. Well, I guess to end it, do you where should people follow you? I mean, you got your YouTube channel. I guess it's just David Finch. Anywhere else?
Instagram. It's DFinch Artist at Instagram. I guess .com. I don't know, but DFinch Artist on Instagram, and I have Facebook. I don't know what that is.
You have one, but probably follow us on other places.
I have seen it before.
Yeah, I'm the same way now. I have a Facebook, and my team posts on there, but I never go on there anymore. Yeah. Oh, there I am.
You should. But you know what? Maybe I should have given you a warning before that.
No, I'm like picking my nose. Yeah. 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 No, man, thank you so much. This was so much fun. And again, to remind everybody, proko.com/comic page is David's new course that just launched on a pre-sale. Teaches you every step of the process to create a comic page, right? Starting from even just the analyzing the script. So really the full process. Well, wait, you don't color it, right? Or do you?
No, right. I don't color.
No
everything,
color. Okay.
Everything up to color.
Right. You might do another one with coloring, I think. Did we talk about that? Or
You know,
just or maybe at some point in the future on your own or with me.
I think we talked about it.
We did talk about it.
Colorist, so I've done it, but
That's right. Yeah. But you would probably do such a good job. But yeah, that's why you didn't teach it, because you don't usually do that.
right.
But anyway, great course, proko.com/comic page. Man, I don't know what to say. I'm so excited that you did this. Like, not everybody gets to be made into a superhero by David Finch. You know, this is like a bucket list type of event.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. Most fun live stream I've done in a little while. So
Nice.
It's great.
Awesome. Okay, well, I guess that's it. I can't end the stream. I have no power over this.
Right.
It's either David or it's either you or John, and I don't know when it ends. So
It is actually me.
We're just gonna keep talking until
Right.
John cuts it off. I think
actually-
you end it, but then doesn't John have to actually end it on our YouTube channel?
No, I think that's right.
So we'll just let John cut us off at any point here. But anyway, what are you doing the rest of the day?
I still
We
have to
might
work.
still be live.
Yeah. No, I still have to work. I'm jumping right into that. So